Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fleet's Random Ramblings, both in the Discord and on YouTube. It's a pleasure, as always, to have you all here today, and I hope you'll all have a wonderful evening, as we all hope to do when Ramblings goes live. As per usual, we've got the... Well, we've got the usual people knocking around. Ruinon is here in the background to help manage things. The bot should be running. I will just check that now. But it does seem to be working properly, as you would expect. Good lord, the lads really are going ham this evening. Oh well, it's what happens. But yes, so take questions on Discord, take questions on YouTube, as we do. Well, as we always do, basically. And, oh, the bot does not seem to be wanting to play today. What is wrong with you, StreamerBot? What is wrong with you, indeed? Why are you not yet? Okay, so... Yeah, it's okay, that's all. Yeah, okay, that should all be working. Why... Commands are all... Oh, ah, okay, that's not... Ah, that's why it's not... Hang on. Yeah, that's why it's... Ah! Why is that not working? Well, there we go. Right. Okay. So that should, if I've done that right... wait for it to process. Yeah, okay. So... we should now be working as intended, I hope. Well, yeah, Twitch, YouTube Minecraft Watcher. I'm not live on Twitch. I'm never live on Twitch with Ramblings. Also, YouTube Minecraft Watcher, please use the Ramblings text chat, please. Rather than the Rambling Zone side chat. Thank you, everyone. You've got it. But everything should now be set up. Right, so let's have a crack at this. Ah, brilliant. Okay. So, I'll work through the Patreon questions now. So, Lions asks, in response to a statement made during Fleet's Sunday live stream, please explain the difference between a clip and a magazine in terms of firearms and which term should be used when. Please be asked while Foxo is present in case ridicule is needed. Well, luckily, ridicule isn't needed. Basically, a clip is a set of rounds stored together in a... So a magazine is how you store rounds when they're mated to the weapon, usually. Now, most weapons nowadays have external magazines. Like most modern assault rifles, handguns, etc. Have external magazines that you fit into the weapon, and the rounds are already in it. But a lot of the earliest self-loading rifles, bolt-action rifles, they had internal magazines. And you fed clips of rounds into those internal magazines. So the magazine was a part of the weapon, could not be removed. Basically, that's the difference, as far as I'm aware. Now, that's the basics of firearms as I understand them. I don't think I've got anything wrong there. Thank you! Yes, basically, that's as CDONers has posted, that's the absolute basics of the principle. But again, that is an example of an external magazine. In the modern sense. Close enough for government work, Ruinon, I think. Right, so next Patreon question is from Timu Locker, who asks, what else other than the Host Ship Girl body pillows will there be in Fleet's amazing online store? There's got to be a mug. There's got to be a mug. I might commission a drawing of Jeff, and, like, a proper drawing of Jeff. And put that on a mug. There might be my face on a mug from one of Soul's artworks. But have a shirt with Hosh on it, saying "Best Ironclad," or something like that. I don't know if there's any copyright out on Hosh or the image of Hosh, or if the Rue Nationale has any copyright, and I'll have to look into that. But there'll definitely be Hosh-related shenanigans. Timu, quite politely, even though I have the artwork for, you know, because technically it is mine, that Soul made for me, well, was asked to make for me, of Shipgirl Hosh, I don't know if there's anywhere that can manufacture a body pillow for a decent price. That's a really good way to put it, Leslie. Clips hold rounds and are not loaded into the firearm. Magazines hold rounds to be used. Yep, that's a really good way of doing it. That's a very good way of doing it. Brandon Larson asks in the final Patreon question of the day, what if the USS Enterprise had only been lightly damaged by the kamikaze that in our timeline sent one of her elevators to space, and was repaired quickly enough to be back with Task Force 38, and was used as the place for the instrument of surrender of Japan instead of USS Missouri? Does the panel think that would have tipped the scales enough for her to be saved as a museum ship? Politely, Brandon Larson, given that she was in mothballs for almost 15 years after the war ended, and was then scrapped, if that wasn't enough time for momentum to build up for her to be saved, then just having her be where the surrender is signed isn't going to provide enough extra momentum to actually save the ship. Unfortunately, that is the unfortunate circumstance of the matter. Let me just check that the Q&A log is working as intended. Right, if I do, hang on, let me just check to try something. Does that work? Does that work as it's supposed to? No. Why does that not work? Not. Oh, hang on. I think I've got it. Meow. Hang on, Alex. Stop booping me. We're doing some technical bits and bobs here. 1 second. Slight technical bits and bobbery going on. There we go. So bring that there, and then we go. How many? Where?
Oh.
Where do I? There we go. Thank you. Runon's got him. Brilliant. Fantastic. Not here. So where do I do it? Do I do it in the... hang on. Let's try this then. Let's try this. Does that work? There we go. Does that work? Does that work?
And now I can hear you. I can hear... I can... For some reason, you were... Whenever you were speaking, and I can tell you were speaking because of YouTube, it was Runon, which was flashing green for me on Discord.
That is weird.
And it's kind of weird, because I was listening on both and going...
That's strange.
Mate, I can't hear you, mate. But I can hear you.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on here.
Okay, so why is that? Okay, so the bot should be working. It's recording questions. Why is that? So I've got... everything should be working. Version... Next question. Next. Location. Anyway, yeah. So why is it not releasing questions? Because it was before. Why is that not working? Everything else is working. Why is that? There we go! Oh no, Runon's forwarding them manually. Ugh. Let's figure out why that's not working. Because it should still be linked to my Discord. I don't think it's not. I'll just check quickly. Yeah, okay, so it knows where my Discord is. Yeah. Okay, yeah, integrations, yeah. Yeah, yeah, everything else as it should be. I've not touched anything I shouldn't have done. Yeah, no, that's fine. Ah,
He claims.
that is
Not
very...
authentication to them.
That is very, very strange. Well...
Oh, there's a big update for Timboard.
Never mind. Never mind. No, it's all right. It's all right. We've got the old-fashioned methods. It's fine. Ruinon is helping. Thank goodness she's here, keeping everything flowing normally. We'll just have to, because that's 2 weeks in a row it's gone wrong. But it's fine. We'll figure it out. Hey, Chair's here. It's a long time no see, good buddy. How have you been? Oh, and James is here. I didn't even see him. Get him up here. Get him up here. There we go. Hey.
James sitting there going, dang, I almost got away with it. I almost got away with it.
Oh, there we go. So yeah, James is there.
I've got the voice working now.
Yay! Right, so... 1981 asks, would the RN have preferred a missile-based deterrent over a free-fall bomb? And why did they not get one? They did get a missile-based deterrent. The Resolution class, followed later on by the Vanguards. Polaris and Trident. The RN did get...
Basically, when missiles become practical, they get missiles. When missiles aren't really practical, they have free-fall bombs and depth charges. And very interesting torpedoes. And totally not interesting things adapted onto our Sea Dart missile systems. And totally we did absolutely nothing at all with any of the Exocets. We did no mucking around with anything like that.
So the Strategic Defense Review apparently for 2025 just dropped, which I have not read and can't exactly read.
Yeah, I have.
Okay, who's read it? Because I have not read it and I wasn't aware it had dropped. I thought it was dropping tomorrow, not today.
I
have.
For the carriers, what I mean is the question. Well, that doesn't... you didn't give me any context, Knight. You just said... What?
Oh, in the nicest way, that's a nicest way. They're talking about looking into getting these systems. Until anyone actually places a check for an order, we won't know what the frigate we're getting, even if we're getting anything.
Yeah.
In the nicest way, it's like every SDSR, and I'm doing this rant before poor James does it, because his blood pressure probably will spike. The amount of stuff which is written in SDSR about what we'd like to do, what we'll investigate, what potentially going to happen, versus what will actually happen is enormous.
Yeah, don't take anything it says at face value, because it's just a review. It's a review. It's review and recommendation rather than firm commitment to action.
And also because at the moment I'm trying to think, what is the missile equivalent of B-61?
The only thing in inventory that fits that sort of yield and use case is the object the French use under their Mirages and Rafales. But that doesn't fit in an F-35 weapons bay. I don't think the F-35 can even carry it.
Theoretically...
I don't think carry much. When British, that was.
We know it's carrier rated because the French have stocks of it aboard Charles de Gaulle to use on their sea-based Rafale. The problem is, can an F-35 carry it, and can it be integrated if the RN does want a missile-based deterrence? That's not just, the immediate remove country from the map button that the Vanguard fleet is. But anyway, so let's see. You can post questions here. And yes, you can post question-related pictures here, YouTube Minecraft Watcher. This is the Ramblings text is the place for people who want to ask questions on Discord to ask questions on Discord. You can ask questions on YouTube, or you can ask questions on Discord.
Either will work.
The SDSR, it's a lot of fluff in it.
Yes, there is. There's a huge amount of fluff. It's so fluffy it puts my corgi to shame.
Ruinon, we prefer the bot when it's working. And the bot right now is not. Well, it's working, but it's not working.
The bot is working in all caps.
Yes, but it's not but it's not transiting questions over to Stream Q&A, so therefore it's not working.
Hasn't it just done that?
No, that's Ruin on forwarding them. That's not the bot. The bot should be automatically putting them in there, and it used to do it. But I'm not quite sure what broke. But something broke when I updated it. And even Ruinon's not sure what broke.
Okay, so if we are going for something with a nuclear war, a missile-based nuclear warhead system, we have to looking at potentially an upgrading to the JASM, the AGM-158, which theoretically, due to its size of warhead it does carry, etc., could theoretically be upgraded to a nuclear warhead in the same range as the B-61.
Yeah.
But currently, as built, is not built with that capability. But in the nicest way, reading through all the paperwork, there are enough holes in this line of we have not been built with this capability. It has not been built with this capability. Is the basic phrasing they're saying.
Yeah.
No point have they mentioned not designed with that capability as option or things like that. So I would say if we do the AGM 158 JASM and the JASM B AR are technically conventionally armed, but theoretically, if you wanted to introduce a nuclear standoff missile that could go on an F-35, it'd probably be that. Even then, on the 35B, they're external mounted, I think. I don't think the ERs fit internally on an F-35, but there again,
whereas the advantage
I don't think that.
Sorry, go on.
They don't. I don't think they need to.
Yeah.
Because they have a range of 230 miles. So the thing is, even with them externally on the cross, even with them externally, and that's not the extended one. Actually, has a longer range than that. The extended one has a range of greater than 575 miles. So if you've got that externally on your F-35B, you are probably going to be able to get within 500 miles of a target, drop that, fire that, and get out without too much worry. Even your arm carrying it externally.
Yeah, whereas the advantage of B-61 is that it can be carried internally without compromising the stealth profile of 35, with the disadvantage being you have to get closer. So it's a trade-off.
Yes. I know which one I prefer, but I will ask James, which one would you prefer?
If you were flying the one with basically the standoff range.
Yes, me too, actually, me too. Now, of course, the real McCoy would be something that could fit inside the bomb bay of an F-35 with standoff range. That would be the gold. That would be the gold cherry there. Like that would.
But F-35 bay is small.
I know.
Not small,
I know.
Especially British F-35 because we've got a hooking great big turbo fan in the middle of it.
And also, in the nicest way, whilst that is the golden cherry and everything, that's the perfect thing. And nicest way, it's good enough. I would take a converter, but in a nicer way, I sincerely hope and sincerely doubt we will go that far down that route.
Yeah, probably
at this current time, because
we don't have a war at the moment.
Yeah, and tactical nukes always sound like a lovely thing.
We're not getting into this because you and I will never
start getting into it.
You and I will never agree. So let's just move on.
Because you think for some reason you're going to go.
We will never. We will. No, no. Don't misquote me. Stop it. We've done this countless times before. Let's not get into it. We will just go around in circles like we always do, and it never goes anywhere. Right. So, Ramblings text. Tripper, Tropper, Tralala, Lirily Rill, which is a hell of a name, on Discord, asks, alternative fuels have been used in times of desperation. The Germans tried to fuel aircraft with coal, one singular mad ramjet proposed by Livish, but yes, technically true. And the Japanese tried to fuel aircraft with pine oil mixed with avgas. Has anyone out of desperation tried to fuel a warship with wood? Well, there have been wood-fired warships.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, there have been plenty of wood-fired warships. I mean, during the American Civil War, wood was actually considered preferable in the South if they could get it. The usual the usual fuel for warships in the South during the American Civil War was cotton bales.
Now, the thing here is, you very much got to depend on the type of warship and the type of boiler that they're running with.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about American Civil War in the 1860s, then yes, you are working with something like maybe 100-pound square-inch boilers. Like, they do not need ridiculous amount of heat to get them to decent pressures, to decent working pressures. If you're talking about something, I know, a bit bigger, like, say, Belfast, with 350-pound working pressure in her
And she's also not set
boilers.
up to handle solid fuel anyway.
No, she's not. But just sort of think, if you're talking like a Yarrow or a Admiralty or whatever, a water tube boiler, they take a shit ton of power. The heat in them that needs them to generate steam to anything like a working pressure, a decent working pressure.
Yeah.
That's why you sort of see wood-fired steam engines on railways also phase out sort of late 19th, early 20th century, because you just don't get the decent working pressures out of wood, which burns significantly colder than coal or oil.
Yeah, it also got rid of the sparks problem.
That's true. Wood doesn't burn completely as completely as many other things. Like oil, pretty much completely burns. When you burn it, you don't have much residue. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Or at least the residue you do get is gaseous and sort of, or like aerosolized, so that you just fling out the top. It's fine, you don't have a problem.
There's a reason why, as soon as the US railroads got coal out west in a big way, you see that the wood burners go almost overnight. As do the massive spark-arresting chimneys they have to have on top of them.
Which I think is sad, because those were cute.
Yeah, spark-arresting, wood-burning 440s do have a vibe to them that is definitely, you know.
But again, these things are working like 130 pounds a square. These are not.
Like literally, like if you look at some of the early photos of operating the Transcontinental Railway just after it's completed, like there's like an 8-car train on the Central Pacific. These 3 440s to lift it uphill because they just have no pressure between them. So to move 8 wooden passenger cars, it needs like 3 of them on just like a small hill. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, who will win, a UNSC Punic-class supercarrier or an Allegiance-class battlecruiser? The problem is you put the UNSC against something from Star Wars, and I'm sorry, but shields and turbo lasers be upon ye. It's like a worse version of a... It's like throwing a Punic-class supercarrier against... one-on-one against a Covenant supercarrier. The Covenant supercarrier wins.
Power scaling in sci-fi is fun.
Yes, it is. Yes, it very much is. You're talking about... It's just... Man, he keeps changing his name every question.
Who keeps changing name every question?
The Punic has a Supermac. Yes, the Punic has a Supermac. YouTube Micro. We've seen ships in Star Wars survive things equivalent in energy to a Supermac on their shields, and just go, okay, what? And not really care.
Yeah.
So that was a question from the Q&A log. So, Ruben, can you just start dumping as many questions into Q&A log as you can? And I'll just check them off as I go through them. I don't mind, it's a good workout for the tongue. You din 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 dun ma din din asks, good lord, that man's name keeps extending every time. Some sci-fi universes, like the 40k universe, have so many authors that power scaling differs considerably between authors. In that case, how do you find out what is canon and what is not? Specifically in terms of 40k, you don't. If it's a written Black Library book,
yes,
it's technically all canon.
Yes.
But it's also technically not all canon. It's daft.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the Black Library here? The Black Library is all canon. It's just the fact is, it's that perspective. It's the perspective of the narrators. It's the perspective of the narrator of that canon. That's the point with the Black Library. you're getting one person's view on events. They can only ever see so much.
Okay. What is this thing? Okay. I'm just looking up something. I need to figure out what's going on here. Okay, here we go. Right. Okay. Five-speed battleship. Okay, so the question is, what are your thoughts on the Tier 10 battlecruiser from this YouTube Minecraft watcher, Schlieffen, and if the Germany in World War II constructed World War I and constructed a class of them instead of the Der Flingers? Well, okay. First things first. In terms of this ship, I'm trying to figure out what she is. She looks to be the hypothetical follow-on upon which some work was done that would have followed the ships that were to follow the Bayerns. That's what she appears to be. She is taken from that almost napkin drawing and extrapolated into, because she was supposed to be the merging of the German battlecruiser and battleship development lines into one ship. That was supposed to be a thing, because there were the Bayerns, there were the 4 ships of the Bayerns, there were the L-20 Alphas that were to follow the Bayerns, then there would have been this ship, and then on the battlecruiser side there would have been the Flingers plus Hindenburg, then the Mackensons, then the 15-inch ship, then the Ersatz Yorks, and then then they would also merge into this ship type. Now, here's the thing. In terms of what she is in World of Warships, I don't really have a comment on her. Like I said, I don't really play World of Warships that often, and I'm not really that high up the German tree.
Well, let's figure this out. She's 50,000 tons. She's 16.5-inch guns. What is she as a warship?
Well,
with that said, and also, you do know what there's World of Warships fact sheet, don't you?
Yeah,
you can go read off and
I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
In terms. So, she's clearly depicted in a hypothetical rebuild under Nazi ownership, given the weapons fit she's carrying.
Yes.
Now, this really isn't indicative of how she would look in World War I, which is what the other second half of the question is about.
Yeah.
But if we take away her
350 mils.
Yeah, and the thing I find most confusing is that they've clearly replaced her secondaries with twins, which she definitely would not have as built. Which I find even more confusing.
Well, have you looked at the zoomed in on the picture?
Yeah, the torpedo.
Twin casemates.
Yeah, the torpedo. Yeah,
look at the casemates.
Yeah, which means, and those would have had to have been retrofitted. She would not have been built with them.
No one would build anyone with that sort of casemate. No one's that stupid.
Yeah. But if we take away, if we take, it's the Tier 10 battlecruiser that's been added to World of Warships, recently for the Germans.
2021.
Well, shows how up to date I am. But to bring it back to a hypothetical that is more understandable and reasonable, okay, so in regards to the Germans building a class of them instead of the Der Flingers, we've run into a few problems immediately. First of all, I think she's too big. I don't know if the Germans have
50,000 tons.
Yeah, I don't think the Germans have the slips to build anything like her at the time.
What do you mean instead of? She's twice as heavy as the Flinger.
If they're building them, they're not building battleships at the same time either. They are literally now. If they're building 4 of these, then they are losing 4 battleships as well as the 4 battlecruisers.
But 4 of these, they're not. They're not. They're only building 3, 2, and then 1 because they're replacing the Der Flingers. So that's Der Flinger. That's Der Flinger and Lutzow plus Hindenburg.
Okay, well then it's still 6. But honestly, I would say the maths works out easier once you're looking at 8.
Yeah.
Yes, but yeah.
But still, even with only 3 of them being built, it's still eating up the entire year's budget, if not the year after as well.
And also, there's the question of what the frigate would the Royal Navy respond with? Because if you consider when the Duflingers come into service,
Yep.
but,
I
you
mean,
know, but
18-inch battle cruisers.
Yeah,
the thing is, the Duflingers are ordered, and all ordered in 1912.
Yeah, the QEs are going to be... The British are going to go, right, okay, we're jumping to 18s. I'm not messing around.
No. The Queen Elizabeths are going to be... Because me and Drac have found some research being done on triple turret. As I said, my long suspicion is that Agincourt was going to be an 18-inch gunship with 3 twin 18s. That's what I think she was going to be. And that's what fits. And that's also explained where there's a design study, because they keep... When they're doing the Renown rebuild and they're going for 3 twin turrets, they keep saying they've got design studies from a design.
Yeah.
And they're referring to. But no one knows where the design is, because no one's found it. And the only ship we've got missing, which would fit in a timeline for them to have a design study, is Agincourt.
Yeah.
But there's no way you go for a battleship with only 3 twin 15s to drop it down. So it's got to be 3 twin 18s. This is why I'm out. So basically, under that scenario, the Navy might go for something. Well, this has got 8 16.5-inch guns. So the only way they're going to beat that is if they could go for something which has got either 8 18s or 9 18s.
Yeah, and also these ships are... I think you're talking about build times in like a 4-year build time. They might not be ready till 1916, and they might not be operational till 1917.
Which means the German Navy's going to be down however many...
They're going to be down the Königs. That's how bad this is. They're going to be down an entire class of 5 battleships.
And while these ships do have a speed of 34 knots, if you consider what Britain will respond with in that time...
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I could see the British government setting up a actual design competition for 18-inch guns, saying we need an 18-inch 45 which works within 2 years, because that's when the ships need it. We need and here's going to be a prize. We'll set a prize of something like £5 million or something. And then just watch as Vickers and Armstrong and all the gun manufacturers in the UK tear each other apart to get that prize.
Mm-hmm.
The Vickers 18-inch salesman comes to your door.
It's just actually the people I'm feeling sorry for are the US Navy. Because if the Germans have that being built and the British are building their response, then suddenly there's going to be a certain US senator going, "Hello, everyone, my designs look rather acceptable now, don't they?"
Yeah. Although it's likely to be the ones that you're probably going to have either the 1518 or the 1218 being built as the options they go for out of the Tillmans, because one of them offers more speed and the other one offers much better firepower.
Well, I don't think any of them are going to match in, because if the Germans have got a 34-knot ship, which is going to have 8 16.5 inches. No, this design is going to be 30-knot ship, right?
Yeah.
So what are the British going to go for in speed-wise?
They're going to want 32 knots at least, at minimum.
To face off against a 34-knot ship, the Royal Navy, which usually relies on having a speed advantage over the Germans, dictates the pace of battle.
Oh, yes, right, no, they're going to go for 35, 36.
Well, they're going to want at least a 3-knot advantage to dictate speed, dictate the range of fire.
You can't push a hole through the water that quickly unless you haven't... It's just not...
More boilers, my boy. More boilers.
Even with small tubes and oil firing, if you try to push beyond 34 knots, you...
It's gonna be expensively. I'm not saying it's practical or sane. I'm saying you're dealing with a Royal Navy made up of people like Fisher, Jellicoe, and Beatty.
And the ship will probably not reach its top speed. Then again, hopefully neither will the Germans. So there'll still be a speed advantage anyway. But, you know, both ships are going to come out slower than they're actually designed to. I can guarantee it. At least 2 knots off.
Oh, because They probably push it to like 450 PSI.
Especially the
wouldn't
German. Heck, the German ships are probably going to lose 4 to 5 knots because politely they're going to be using German extremely poor quality coal.
Well,
So
well, they're becoming.
Look,
But a good Yorkshire steam coal. Oh,
it gets. Well, the reason I'm saying all this is then you've got to have the Japanese also feeding into that. So can the Americans go for something which is less than 33, 34 knots?
No, they're gonna have to adopt the Tillman, which has 12 16s but was rated for 35 knots.
This is going to be a scenario where I honestly see the Americans having to pay to widen the Panama Canal
Yep. Well,
in about 1916, 1917.
well, the thing with the Tillmans, remember, is that the thing that will make the Tillmans incredibly attractive is that the restrictions with Panamax. That's the whole thing. All of the Tillman designs fit through the canals. That's the thing that makes them so
they
attractive.
do. They do on paper, but in practice, when trying to build them,
Yeah, margins and all that. Yeah, no, fair enough.
and also you have to remember this is this generation. What's the frigging next generation
I
gonna
don't
look like?
want to think about it.
But basically, what's happening is you're taking a very much an out of context problem. You're taking something which, in real world, if it had come about, the developments would have been going on simultaneously between both powers,
Yeah,
and you would have had answering responses from both sides,
it just
and everyone would have leveled up players anyway.
And also, everyone's just going, why did the Germans do this? It's massively changed the game and ruined basically
Well,
everyone's ships again.
No, it suddenly the Germans are suddenly trying to jump into the qualitative race. They've been part of the quantitative race with Britain, but they were never part of the qualitative race. They were never racing to set the pace in terms of the quality of ships, in terms of their size of their guns or their speed or these things. They were building solid ships, but not. They were trying to go for the maximum number they could get on their budget, rather than the best ships they could get. By doing this, they've suddenly gone for the best ships they can get on budget, which does mean they're no longer in a quantitative race with the Royal Navy, but it suddenly added a whole new edge to the qualitative race.
Yeah. And also, like, basically the French and the French, the Italians, and the Austro-Hungarians are sat there going, no, I'm not getting involved in this. They can't afford
No, the
it.
French are going to get. The French will get suckered into it. We know the French will get suckered into it. The Italians are already involved happily, as are the Austro-Hungarians. Occasionally are jumping in. You have to remember the four powers in the qualitative race are Japan, Italy, Britain, and America. They're the qualitative races, and you can just imagine Russia's also going to want to jump in on it.
Oh God!
This could be.
What are the Borodinos going to come out as ships which are slightly bigger, carrying 12, 16-inch guns in 4 triple turrets, all mounted on the deck?
Who knows?
Oh God! What
All I know is this entire chain of thought would just make me and Drac, as naval historians, sit looking back at that period and going,
what happened? What happened and why? So, naval history with Dr. Alex asks, why are poodles and corgis the best dogs in the world? Well, they are.
Because they are.
They are, according to that man's opinion, but personally, I'm not particularly fond of them myself. Raleigh and the other gentleman with him are lovely dogs, and I've met them, and they really are nice. But I have a soft spot for boxers and my dear old Cross, which we don't know what she is. We don't know what she is. We got her from a shelter.
Is and dog.
Is and dog. It is Fleet Dog. And bless her. Love her to bits and pieces. Like, 18 years old and still going strong. From Gorillo Watermelon Drillo. What sort of name is that? What is the most outrageous World of Warships paper design? Oh, God, what again?
One of those American battle carrier thing?
The problem is
I don't pay that much attention.
Well, first of all, that ship should really have been in the Russian tree because it was a design the Russians asked for from a private contractor in the US rather than anything the US was actually considering. But
Should we take a look down the World of Warships tier list and
We probably should.
it's probably gonna be like a tier 10,
I think it's the.
tier 11.
I think it's probably it's probably one of the tier 11s. Probably the no. I know exactly what it is. It's the Chinese premium version of Yamato that has had its turrets swapped for Russian 18-inch guns and in Russian turrets. Because A, China wouldn't get a Yamato to begin with out of the peace conference if one was left. B, they couldn't pay for it to be refitted even if they had it. And E, if they did, why on earth would they spend the money to replace the main armament when that would cost them an arm and a leg?
It wouldn't be China get it. It would be the Republic of China. It would be Taiwan, which would currently have it.
Well, the Republic of the actual China, the real China.
The Republic.
Where's Taiwan?
Yes,
But the communists don't take power until 49.
I know.
I mean, sure, they do throw them out.
So
But
hang on.
I will no, because I know exactly because Chiang Kai-shek is going to run away to Taiwan on it, isn't he? If he has one, of course he's keeping it as close as possible to where he is, and that's what he's using to evacuate to Taiwan.
Yes,
Oh,
but
yeah.
well, the problem is that it's supposed to be a Chinese communist Yamato.
How the hell did they get that?
Yeah, this is my point.
I suppose that is why it is outrageous. Yeah, fair
Yeah,
enough.
and then the
Yeah.
refits just add on top of it.
No, the Chinese will never get. They shouldn't have. Where? What?
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
no, you're right. This has broken my brain the most.
Have we got a
I
name for
hate
this
that.
thing?
Yeah, what is it called?
Hang on, I'll have a look.
Because I've got a certain website where I can actually look at all the models of the ships, and I can't seem to find it under the Pan-Asian line.
Chanzeng.
Chanzeng.
I think so, yeah.
Someone got a photo of this thing.
Yes. Oh, it gets worse. Oh, it actually gets worse.
Might be better.
It's a full armament swap. It's not just the primary battery. I hate it. I genuinely hate it with a passion.
What is this again?
It's in Rambling's text. I cannot stress enough. Why? Who thought this was a good idea?
I quite like it.
I hate it with a passion unequaled. Whose idea was... Well, it is Leicester, so it is the purely Russian World of Warships devs who've gone completely off the rails.
Ah, there we go. That's why we can't find it.
But it is still World of Warships.
Speaking of someone who occasionally talks with these lovely people, I would say,
What I will say is that, look, it's a good sign that none of the actual World of Warships ships I considered cursed enough to actually be considered for this. There, take that as the bonus. I had to go to the cursed...
That's the point, Doc.
Yeah, I had to go to the cursed, the cursed menagerie to actually get something so cursed that I would consider putting it on this list.
Oh, actually, she's actually got some good things about her.
What?
So if I send you a photo of the ship, she's
Okay.
actually got some pretty decent improvements over a Yami. So she hasn't got float planes on the aft end.
She's got a
So she's got
helicopter
a
pad.
helipad. Yeah, but also it's just better. Look at all the anti-aircraft guns on
Yes, I am aware
That
of
would-
all these improvements, but also I hate the fact that the thing even exists.
it. Yeah. Meh.
Ah. Angie fleet noises. Right. Ruinon. So, no, it's not Ruinon, sorry. You should Minecraft Watcher. What if in 1904, Germany supported the Tsar against Japan, sent troops and competent commanders to help? How would this affect World War I and World War II? Congratulations, you've started World War I.
Yes, this is World War One now.
Because
Well
that will trigger the Japanese to call the Anglo-Japanese alliance to arms. The French will see that as an opportunity to put the French are already allied to the Russians, so they'll see that as a chance to put the Germans in their place. The Italians and the Austrians will probably join on the German side, because that is a defensive war, because the Germans have been attacked by the French and the British. And at that point, yeah, World War One. That is World War One.
But slightly different.
I mean, it's a pre-Dreadnought war rather than a war between. For starters, there's no Second Pacific Squadron. But also the Japanese will move to secure Tsingtao in incredibly short order. Because the German East Asian Squadron is still, the Japanese are going to win in the East because politely, the Royal Navy's going to show up.
Yeah, because the Germans aren't going to get there ever.
No one's going to get there. Like, there's just
you don't.
And also, the Schlieffen Plan already exists. So guess what's happening? It's just going to be a rerun of 1914 without aircraft. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, although the Schlieffen Plan is slightly different. And I also wonder, because the British are joining this war as more of an aggressor rather than as a Belgian defender, you might see different British troop allocations.
It also
because also what you've got is the Germans are 10 years behind still with their army.
Oh no! Wait, hang on. No, the French aren't going to attack the Germans, are they? Because the Germans are helping the Russians. So
yeah.
So at that point, then
the French aren't actually stepping in.
So at that point, then, well, the thing is,
it's nothing like 14.
Because if the French step in, then they have to declare war against the British. Because the moment the Germans join in alongside of Russians, then the British join the Japanese. The Italians probably go we're neutral because the Germans have gone offensive.
Yeah.
And the French are probably going, oh frigate. Well, if we go to war against if we go to war on the side of the Russians, we have to go to war against the British.
But we really,
which mucks us up again. And if we go to war against if we go to war against the Germans, the side of the British, destroys our alliance with the Russians.
Well, I think. Well, to be fair, I think the French will take some time to mobilize, but I reckon they will eventually join the war because at that point, the alliance with the Russians, is already a dead entity. If Kaiser Wilhelm has locked in that brother's alliance that cousin's alliance, it's just going to take the French politicians like a couple of months to realize that the alliance is already dead, and the only thing to do now the only thing to do at this point is to absolutely lean in to the Entente Cordiale with the British.
And I suppose if the
What it's also going to mean, though, is it's going to mean that because Germany has access to Russia, this is going to be a war that's probably going to result in a negotiated settlement. Because, politely, Britain can reduce Germany's ability to wage war by denying certain imports from the outside. They can't starve her.
I mean, and I suppose because the British are at war with the Russians now, are we seeing, I mean, this might be completely bizarre, but are we seeing Indians in Vladivostok?
We're seeing Indians politely but firmly asking the Persians to not shoot at them while they march through.
Or, I can't remember what the Northwest frontier is like at the moment, at that point. It's not the best.
Neither side wants to go through Afghanistan. Let's put it.
That's true.
Like if there's gonna be anywhere they go through, it's gonna be Persia. And both sides are probably going to be moving to secure that as quickly as possible. The side that's going to be most interesting are the Ottomans, because the Ottomans at this point, while they are working with the Germans, still have an awful lot of lingering sentiments towards Britain and France in terms of positivity.
It's 1994.
Yeah.
There isn't a battleship for the British to steal off them.
No, not yet.
Which will piss them off.
And also, the other issue is for everyone with the Ottomans, etc., is that, well, for their particular requirements and their particular scenario,
And of course, the Ottomans want to go to the war with the Russians anyway.
Yes, that's the more thing. They want to go to war with the Russians.
Revenge for 1870.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, the Ottomans.
Sorry,
The Ottomans will. The thing is, at this point, the Ottomans are in the midst of an ill rearmament program, and they are currently tossing up: do we go for British yards or German yards? And here's the thing: if the British say we will pay for basically a navy in miniature for you, let's say a battle squadron of small second-class pre-dreadnoughts, 4 to 5 protected cruisers, and 3 to 6 flotillas of torpedo boat destroyers in exchange for you joining the war, the Ottomans are going to go, yes, please. That is a complete
Well, the
renewal.
Mediterranean fleet's going through the Bosphorus, isn't it? It's just...
Yes, but the thing is, in order that basically the whole fleet for free is the inducement to the Ottomans to get them to jump in.
So yeah, you've got... Well,
And that gets that really basically means the British almost don't need to go through Persia.
Yeah, because they can go.
No, because they'll just land in Crimea.
They can do Crimea again.
Oh no, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
It's unfortunately not.
Yeah, they're not going to
be...
go through Persia. They're going to come up through the Caucasus if they're going on land, and Crimea if by sea.
If the Ottomans join, the Austrians, if they aren't already in, will also join. Which means there's going to be an Austrian front.
If you remember the period you're talking about, you also got the interesting point in Finnish relations going on at this time.
Yeah.
It's supporting Finnish independence.
Like this whole thing is.
There's going to be a lot of silliness in the.
Yeah, this whole thing is gonna. This is gonna it's. I don't think it's gonna be a fight to the Finnish Great War as we would understand it. I think there's going to be some point where all the powers go, right, okay, let's sit down. Because
the Russians are just going to lose all of their sea access almost instantly, because Crimea will fall, they've lost the Far East, nothing can get out of the Baltic.
Yeah, but even
and good luck going over the top.
Yeah, but even with the Japanese won't be able to land ashore, because the Germans will reinforce the Russians. Because
what do you mean? No, because they do at Port Arthur.
The Germans,
they took part of Port Arthur by land.
And they have to come down one incomplete railway line.
Yeah.
The Trans-Siberian Railway line isn't yet complete. And then there's another railway line down to Port Arthur. There is no way the Germans are getting any troops there in time that are going to help. The Russians couldn't even get troops there in time to help.
Okay, yeah, so that's... Okay, so...
Yeah, there will be...
All you can do is get a lot of very cold Germans at Vladivostok.
Who are getting... No, so we'll arrive at a burning Vladivostok as the Aussies go rampaging through.
I mean, here's the funny thing. Once the Japanese have achieved their war goals, it depends. It can go one of two ways. Because here's the thing: with Russia and Germany and Austria-Hungary together, Britain can blockade the continent and lock them in.
Would Austria-Hungary join it? They hate Russia even more.
If the Ottomans join, the Austrians will join against the Ottomans, because that is a chance to redress the Balkans once and for all in their favour.
If the Ottomans join, but the British might not get the Ottomans to join, like give them a fleet. All they need is access. They don't need a fleet, and they don't need them to join the war.
So basically,
pay them. The Montreal Treaty doesn't exist.
Oh yeah,
so just can we come through the Bosphorus? Yeah, sure.
We'll pay you with basically an entirely new fleet that will cost us next to nothing in our budget.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go. But yeah,
you're just landing in Sevastopol or somewhere nearby.
It escalates to a full-scale war, which then everyone peters out and everyone realizes, okay, we can't move the fronts in France. The British are in Sevastopol doing things. The Japanese can't the Japanese have taken what they want to take in the east, and we can't retake it. But at the same time, the British can't capitulate the Germans or the Russians by starving them out, because Germany and Russia combined, they can feed themselves.
Well, it depends how quickly the British are marching through Ukraine.
Politely, it's one thing for the Russians to not be able to push the Japanese out of Vladivostok. It's entirely another for the Germans and the Russians to bring a sledgehammer down on a BEF in Sevastopol and Crimea.
You're thinking about them fighting battles in Ukraine. It's not. What about them just doing a chevauchée?
Yeah, this is the Royal Naval Armoured Car Squadron.
Oh no,
This is their perfect.
Oh no,
well,
I'm
not
aware.
quite
Like,
perfect, but
but what I mean is, in terms of actual, events that could lead to unconditional surrender, they're just the options in this war for either side to inflict that on the other are slim to none.
I'm not so sure.
There will be some form of negotiated settlement.
Yeah.
And what
probably.
form? What I reckon the Japanese will achieve their war aims. The Russians will probably be compensated by the British withdrawing from Finland and giving them carte blanche to put down that revolt. In order to
It depends how successful they.
Well, yes, but the whole point is that you have to. There has to be
Remember
given.
what the British were doing to the Estonians,
Yes, but
to like
that
for the
was
Estonians and the Baltics and things like that.
yes, but that's a slightly different. But the whole thing here is that I can't see anyone's governments getting toppled, and I can't see.
I can see the Russians going. They didn't really get that close, but the 1905 revolution in Russia isn't exactly to be sniffed at.
It isn't, but there's a
And
problem.
that was just from losing Tsushima.
Yeah, there's a problem.
Imagine
though.
if all of Eastern Russia go,
Well, all of Eastern Russia.
or at least effectively.
Yeah.
But I mean, like the eastern seaports and all that are gone.
Well, the whole point is it was over in Manchuria and Port Arthur, and the Japanese will. And bear in mind, the Japanese are also by.
Well, then look at
1905.
Vladivostok and say, that looks undefended as well.
Well, the thing is, there will likely not be an appetite for that level of, on any side, German, Russian, Japanese, or British, even French, for that level of.
If it looks too static in the West, I'm sure the British will think about invading Eastern Russia.
Well, it depends on, because the whole point is
That's the whole reason why Gallipoli happened. It
yeah.
was opening new fronts because it was too static in the West.
Yes, but here's the thing you've got to remember. This isn't... The whole reason that this war has spiraled is over the Russo-Japanese conflict. Once the central tenet of that conflict in Manchuria and Port Arthur has been resolved in a way that the Russians cannot significantly contest, at that point everyone's kind of got to stop and go, okay, what now? Now, one solution to that is negotiation and peace, the other is various powers doubling down and seeking much greater things. Like, bear in mind, the Germans will have troops in Russia, either on their way to the Far East or on their way to fronts with the British in Sevastopol, Ukraine, that area, as they're raiding and doing nonsense down there. It's highly likely that Wilhelm II might not be keen on his brother being cousin being overthrown or having any form of restrictions placed on him by a revolution.
So but again, you get in the Russian Civil War, the Freikorps they're not obviously not as disciplined as if they would be in regular German units, but it's gonna get messy in Russia.
I don't really see it. It's Russia of the 1905 period isn't the same as Russia in 1917. There is unrest, to be sure, but remember, the 1905 revolution is a very soft revolution compared to what comes later. And to be fair,
but again, the situation could be a lot worse for Russia.
Not. It depends on how the whole thing around the British operations in Finland and the Ukraine goes. If the British are successful, then there will probably be a revolution. If, however, the Russians can defeat Perfidious Albion, that'll be a massive shot in the arm for the Tsar's public image. Even if the Germans have helped.
They're not going to.
I can see it. I could easily see the Russians doing it. The Russians have the army to do it.
Possibly by land, but that's not stopping the Finns.
I mean, the Finns can be invaded by land. The Russians...
Ish?
No, the Russians can do it. Easily. Especially...
So you think the Russians can handle in the Crimea, in Finland, and the Far East, and potentially whatever's going on in Europe proper.
The reason I say Finland and Crimea is because those are logistically quite well connected to the rest of Russia by this point, with decent broad gauge railway connections. The Russians can. The Russians. Can, the Russians.
Yeah,
can,
but the trouble is, where does Russia get their parts for their trains from?
By 1905, they're building their locomotives domestically. They have.
But where are they building them?
I think Western Russia. There's.
I think mainly, but where's a lot of supplies coming from is going to be the Ukrainian coast of the Azov Sea.
There's loco plants.
There are.
There's loco plants around Moscow. There's loco plants in the Ukraine, and there's loco plants around St. Petersburg. And all of them are churning out the ubiquitous 080s by this point for war service. So they're gonna be able to logistically maintain their network. There's no decapitation strike that can be done really to cripple that the British can really get off with and do a strike that cripples the entire Russian rail net. In the West, I can expect that the Finnish campaigns is up in the air. I can see that going either way, either a Russian victory or a British victory. Sevastopol, I think the Russians are going to crush the incursion. It'll be kind of a early Gallipoli equivalent. It'll be surprising at first, but the Russians and the Germans will bring mass to bear and will, in the end, crush it. In the East, I see things going as historically. With the Japanese succeeding. I see them trying to push towards Vladivostok, but the problem will be at that point they will run into the same issues that the Russians have trying to attack the other way. Vladivostok is heavily defended enough that a landing by sea is risky. But
it'll be what was it? Like Vladivostok's on a peninsula.
It is, but it's also the end of the mature part of the Trans-Siberian Railway.
So that's getting cut.
Not mature at that point. It's not mature in
1904. It's single track a lot of the way, Fleet.
It is
a lot of the way.
It's enough to move enough supplies into.
It's something like 15 trains a day just moving. That's it. On the entire Trans-Siberian.
At that point, it doesn't do that at that point because quite a lot of the route is still train ferries, not train bridges.
That's it.
By 1905,
even in 1905,
Fleet, it is 15 trains a day on the move. That's it.
That's not really good. I still don't see them moving to take Vladivostok though. That would just basically cause the Russians to double down, and the war would drag on for years with no clear winner.
I don't quite see how that would be a concern for okay, how do we make sure the Russians heavily tax the Russian infrastructure, supplies, everything? We just invade more of Eastern Russia. What are they going to do about it?
Well, the problem
it's kind of a win-win. It's if they don't do anything about it, oh look, we've just taken more of Russia. If they do something about it, they're not fighting more in the West. If we've got forces in Crimea and in Finland, and who knows where else, maybe they're trying to push through Persia as well. You never know. Things getting funky in the Baltic. Well, probably not getting that funky in the Baltic. You've got to deal with the German fleet as well. But I mean, at this point as well, because this is pre-Dreadnought, so the German Navy's not really the comparative.
Even at this point, the Germans have got, I think it's 20. They've still got the Brandenburgs. They've got the Kaiser Frederick III's, and I think they've just scraping into commission. Hang on.
The Schleswig-Holsteins are coming.
Yeah,
whatever class Schleswig-Holsteins in.
Yeah, the Deutschlands.
Soon.
Yeah, the Deutschlands are. Yeah, the Deutschlands are being building, but they have completed the Braunschweigs. The Braunschweigs are mostly in service. The only ones that aren't are the last three: Hessen, Preußen, and Lothringen. So they have 11-inch ships in the fleet. More are coming, and they'll likely be sped up as war continues. I can see most of the class, the 10 German ships with 11-inch guns completing. But again, I think the problem is, beyond the basics of what we've discussed, it's really hard to predict how the war would actually go.
That's true.
And I feel like we have.
It's going
kind
to
of,
depend on who. And you have to remember, in 1905, who's in charge in the British forces?
yeah,
Who's the dominant personality?
yeah. Fisher is in charge. Yeah, he is.
And also, HMS Dreadnought is just about to enter service.
Yes,
Um,
yes, she is.
Whilst she was, the sort of technical, the accidental leveler up, sort of.
Yeah.
For the first however long she's in service, she can kind of just go, yes, Wilhelmshaven, would you like to be bombarded?
Not really. The Germans
I mean, not
do
quite,
have
but
the Germans do have a lot of light forces they can bring to bear against sorties in that region, and it is very heavily mined even at this point.
surely it's going to force something.
Problem is, Dreadnought by herself isn't really a game changer. It's the class of ships that follows after her and everything else.
But when backed up by...
Dreadnought will probably operate.
what?
Dreadnought will be operating with the Royal Navy's armored cruisers, leading them. She's fast enough to do it.
I think the more interesting thing is if the Britain's gone to a war footing at that point, what speed does it affect churning out of things and the way things are being built?
Because the British, because there won't be the pause on capital ship construction, because they'll be like, we need to
No,
get
not
more.
at that point.
Yeah, we need to get more ships in.
And the submarine is not yet as mature as it's going to be in 10 years' time, roughly.
No, even
So that's not
submerged,
going to...
even submerged torpedo launchers are hazardous for submarines at this point because they can lose their balance
Yeah.
if they launch and be forced to porpoise up to the surface.
Yeah.
I think we probably talked this one to death.
Yeah, we have kind of a little
We
bit.
probably have done. We have done, but it was fun to talk
It
through.
was, yeah.
Yes.
AMC Woods asks, what is the panel's thoughts on the upcoming update for War Thunder, and do you think they should have brought the North Carolina and South Dakota class battleships along with the Izumo instead of the Yamato and Iowa classes? The whole point of this new update is to inject new players into War Thunder Naval and squeeze as much money from the people who have been waiting for the big ticket ships as possible. Bringing in the North Carolinas and South Dakotas along with the... Well, first of all, no steel was cut for the Izumos, so they couldn't have come in anyway. There's no real capital ship between the ones that are already in War Thunder, like the Kaga and the Akagi. And Yamato. Because no steel was cut on any Japanese ships between those two classes. But yeah, the whole point of this update is to squeeze money out of the whales who've been waiting for Yamato, Bismarck, Charnos with 15-inch guns. That's the whole point. That's why the big ticket names were chosen. Savetsky Soyuz, Richelieu, Vanguard. That's why they're all there. So, 1961 asks... Sorry, go on, James. Go on.
The way I'm looking at it is they have actually kind of shot themselves in the foot. Because what's better than these 5 ships? Exactly. Because when you look at it, if you're going to have a tech tree of ships where you go from one ship to another ship to another ship, where you go, developmental things of, well, this one's okay, but I want to grind myself to get this better ship, which then, gives you the longevity of a game. If you get what I mean. If you're giving them straight the cookie at the end of the tech tree, once they get that thing, they're going to stop playing after that. Probably after about a year or so.
Yep.
Which then means, it's just basically shooting themselves in the foot, and I just don't see the point. But hey, that's Gaijin for you.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they start going missile ships, and then we're like, wee.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Oh yeah. Start lobbing missiles at Iowas will be fun. Then we can really see what happens when an Iowa gets shot with a missile. Does a battleship really work?
No.
Yeah.
I
Testing
know.
Dreadnought against Exocet. Let's find out, chaps.
You joke, someone's probably going to do the live stream of that.
Yeah. And then they're going to be shockingly surprised when Yamato's belt armor fails to stop the missile and she magdets.
Well, to be fair, Fleet will probably do the live stream on that.
Yeah. There you go.
Because
Fleet.
why let
That's
anyone
an
get the
idea.
views?
I would love to have the level of money to get those ships. Or the time to actually grind to get them. Neither of which I have. 1981 asks, so what was the nuclear deterrent weapon before nukes were invented? There really wasn't There really wasn't anything
Battleships?
that... Battleships were
Prior to
definitely...
nuclear weapons, it was prior to nuclear weapons, the doctrine for air power was biological weapons.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was application of large amounts of high explosives and fuel air explosives.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it's battleships that are flying it. Literally, the guy, Giulio Duhe, who is the guy who writes the whole the doctrine which air power and the whole bombardments of World War II by heavy bombers was based around, literally was putting it that bombers would be carrying hundreds tons of biological weapons and decimating cities in a single strike. Because a single wave of 1,000 bombers would launch over each of those bombers carrying 100 tons of bombs, dropping 100 tons of biological weapons on their opponents and nerve agents. So that's it, basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
The one thing
wholesale
almost
destruction through a different mean.
Yeah, it's the one thing which is actually nastier than
Yeah.
using nukes.
Uh-huh. Brackman asks, how well would the Essex be able to be refitted into guided missile cruisers after the Second World War? Do you mean...
Why would you refit the carrier into an guided missile cruiser?
You can't. They're not set up for it. It's not really possible. Besides, they're also the backbone of the US carrier fleet up until the Forrestals come on stream. And even then, they're still second-line units of great utility.
Yeah.
So...
Has someone been looking at ship bucket never built designs and looking at certain British aircraft carriers as Sea Slugs?
Probably.
YouTube... You'd need a lot of space for regular.
Yeah, but
That's
even then, it's just... Knight,
You've already got the catapult.
Amagi, Akagi, it's the same class of ship. It really doesn't matter. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, in a fantasy story I read, there was a type of tree called ironwood that was quite literally as durable as iron plating. If real, would it have dominated until the age of steam and steel? Yes, basically.
Yes.
There's no...
I suppose the question there is, how are you cutting it down? Have you got a
Yeah. Yeah, if
gas axe?
Yeah.
Or something? Because then you just have to wait for the invention of acetylene to actually use the wood.
You probably have to grow it into the shape you need for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose.
And,
how are you joining it then?
And also, honestly, at that point, I'm thinking, honestly, iron will probably still come in. Because you basically tell me, so basically saying, you're telling me we can get the same durability as an ironwood ship without the pain of having to wait to grow the thing?
That we can forge into shape.
You're telling me we can build wooden ship, we can build warships in like only 5 years instead of 25? Yeah, it's just...
It would certainly be fun.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept. You have to grow your own... You'd have to grow it specifically. But you'd always have to grow it into like... Because again, how are you joining them together, the sections together?
Yeah, it's... I
suppose it'd just it'd act as like inserts or something, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Typical Officer asks, opinion on the P2V Neptune. Do you think it did its job well during the Cold War? Yes. Do you think the Shackleton, Atlantique, and Argus are a better patrol aircraft than the Neptune? Well, yes, because the Shackleton, the Atlantique, and the Argus all entered service later than the Neptune, and stayed in service longer than the Neptune. So, if they weren't better than the Neptune, I would have serious questions. Bone Mill Boy asks, what if the RN stays at 4-inch secondaries for all capital ships up to and including the Nelsons? Their secondary fire capability has been greatly reduced. They lack the range and hitting power needed to contend with the growing size of destroyers and cruisers. Especially in terms of reach out and touch. Before the destroyer gets that torpedo away that might kill you. It's a net negative across the board. Typical Gunner Officer asks, opinions on the light multi-role fighter program, both the YF-16 and YF-17. Do you think it's one of the few occasions where both prototypes and designs were adapted and chosen by the US Armed Forces? Why didn't we see the same with the YF-23 and 22 program and the X-32 and 35? Applying my rule here, this question deals with having to know knowledge that of people who fundamentally cannot give their opinions on this, aka the thought process behind the decision, which is still probably classified. It is a question I am choosing under my rule set of post-1991 questions to not answer. You can ask it, but I'm choosing not to answer this one, as it's to give it a proper answer would require information that no one on the panel possesses, because the design choices and decisions made by the procurement...
I can actually answer the one on the 22-23 though.
Well, yeah, go on then. Yeah,
Because,
answer that.
That's a rather simple one. The reason they only went with the 22 is because it was slightly better in the profile and the scenarios they were picking for, and also they didn't need to produce as many to require producing 2 sets of aircraft.
Yeah.
As it was, even the abridged build which they ended up ordering for the 22 was cut down to frigging nothing, pretty much.
Timu Locker asks, so if the RN is going to get a newer and more capable version of the Type 45 with energy weapons, etc., will they consider using nuclear propulsion and power generation for the ship? The RN isn't getting a new version of the Type 45, first of all, but even if they were, they wouldn't consider nuclear propulsion. No, not for a general-purpose surface combatant, or an air defense surface combatant, or any surface combatant that isn't over, like, 25,000 tons. And even then, they might not still do it anyway.
Look,
I've just thought of a caveat to that, though. But
I think James
if you want to go first,
same caveat I was going to do. Come on, I'll see what yours is.
You go first.
Okay, so there have been some interesting discussions I have been privy to, which have been public enough I'm happy to talk about, because the nice way to have a discussion in the middle of Chatham House, then frankly I don't think you're in priority, which is basically it comes down to power demands. With the growth in electronic weapons, and should it be, especially the Type 83 timeline, railgun selected and those sort of systems, and without a comprehensive increase in both safety and capability of battery storage systems for a naval environment where salt water is still a major issue when it comes to batteries, and then I do see, especially the small modular reactors route, possibly being going down for ship power. Possibly. But it is very unlikely you will be dealing with something which is solely nuclear powered. And even then, it will be electric drive, etc. And literally, the nuclear power will be literally taking the position of the gas turbines in it, because they've decided that's enough power density for it to make the systems work. And it might even be a case that the ship has gas turbines and has nuclear power to manage the base load and keep the systems charged. There's a whole discussion around that, because it's around the power demands. The Royal Navy at the moment, concentration on nuclear power is going towards submarines. And the big headline, which is the one which is probably causing both me and James to have simultaneously headaches, is the announcement we're going to go to 12 SSNs, but no discussion of how we're going to get there. And there's me sitting there going, and also the other interesting codicil which I've heard about was also potentially something which is called an attack dreadnought class, which sounds to me an awful like an SSGN variant of the dreadnought class, which might provide at least 2 of those boats.
That's
would be very, very tempting. If that does happen, I would be very happy to see that, because that would fill in until you did the AUKUS construction.
Yeah.
And that would allow us to get to 12 sort of SSNs, where basically by the time the last 3 of the Astutes fall out and we've got the new AUKUS ones in and etc., we would be up to 12.
Yeah.
Including those 2 dreadnought vessels.
And honestly, it would surprise me very much if they didn't, because the thing you would have to do to build them is basically just, okay, we'll just... Because, the thing is, they've got the payload modules that are just... we're not carrying Trident? Oh, neat. We can carry cruise missiles instead. Isn't that kind of the whole point of using the same payload module with... You
can insert... I forget how many cruise missiles. I think it's about 7 Tomahawk style cruise missiles, and I think it's possibly as many as 2 hypersonic missiles per silo.
Yeah,
but don't hold me to that. That's me going from memory, having seen a presentation, which again was a public presentation, so I think it's fine.
Honestly, at that point, then, Dr. Clark, you might as well have a fleet of 6 common dreadnoughts, of which any 2 can be the SSGNs at any one point.
That's possibly what they go with inserts, but also that would explain why the government is currently going for a 7,000 missile capability. That was the other big headline.
Well, that's good.
And that, to me, makes sense, because if you consider the 2 dreadnoughts, if they're each carrying 12, they normally carry 12 ballistic missiles, they could be each toting around nearly 100 cruise missiles each.
Yeah, which would be very nice to have. Are they also going...
Yeah.
Have they also said they're willing to commit to building up the ability to maintain the stocks for that? Because it's all well and good having the missiles.
Oh, that's in the fine print, my friend, and that's in the fine print.
They've actually They've actually thought about the fact that they need the production capacity and the stocks for once.
It's in the fine print in italics. Fine print in italics.
Oh well, it's almost
Which, in that way, is Treasury code. James will be able to answer this. What is fine print and italics code for in any document which has gone past the Treasury? Yeah.
I laugh, but the tears are real.
Yeah.
Oh.
Shall I throw my 2 pence in on this conversation?
Yeah, go for it.
So, there is word on the street.
Oh my!
That a certain civil service company is thinking of putting salt. Is it liquid salt or is it molten salt reactors onto merchant vessels as a test bed, or at least fitted for but not with?
Oh no! Oh my god! What?
Now,
what?
This is actually for power generation itself, but I can see the certain company using them as a test bed for the RN.
I love Quinta-Q. I do love Quinta-Q.
It's not Quinta-Q.
No, of course it's not Quinta-Q.
But the interesting thing is with the proliferation of all these new reactors and the IMO now allowing nuclear reactors on merchant vessels, which then brings us to a whole new sort of issues of ISM and how you keep a nuclear reactor secure and all that jazz. I'll skip the crap of all that lot, the legalities. But you're going to see a lot more of them, especially with the moment with Chinese-built cargo ships, specifically container vessels now exporting reactors. It's becoming more apparent at sea, which might allow the RN to get away with it. Because don't forget that Portsmouth, they don't allow nuclear reactors into the port. They can only sit off the coast.
Yeah.
And also, you must remember there is one thing which is different at the moment to James Bond.
Alex, you broke up quite badly, my friend.
Yeah.
Okay, James, what's the MP for Portsmouth's political party now?
Honestly, I don't know. Who is the MP
Labour.
these days?
the MP for the current government, of course, is Labour, and in a nice way, if the Labour government do wish to push it, they might own MP taking the blame.
Alex, you are breaking up rather badly, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I wonder why I'm breaking up so. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti.
You broke. So you broke up at the end of that.
How's that?
You broke up at the end of that.
That's disturbing. It's Discord, I think, mucking around.
Oh, that's unfortunate. That is exceptionally
But I
unfortunate.
think we kind of got the gist of what you were saying, that if Labour had the will, they would do it.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, yeah.
But it seems to be the one thing. The one thing that we can see is that it does seem to be that this government, despite some of the disagreements I do have with it, does seem to have a track record that I can at least track through this parliament, that if they do want to do something, they have tended to actually manage to do it.
Yeah.
So,
There's also another thing I had a conversation with my housemate about was, they mentioned about a sovereign nuclear deterrent.
oh boy. Did they actually mention that?
Yeah.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
we're so back. We're back. Oh boy, we're back.
It's
We're back. Okay, I guess we're having our own missiles again.
No, they're talking about a sovereignization. They want to bring back the maintenance facilities and things like that into the
Oh,
UK.
beautiful. That's fantastic. That's great. That's actually really
They're
good.
talking about investigating it.
Well, even so,
They're talking about investigating it.
I'm
so,
aware. I'm aware it could mean nothing or everything, but the fact it's even open for discussion is a nice move in the right direction.
Lee, you already know that if they're saying that, oh yeah, we're going to discuss it, that is never going to happen.
The thing is, no, if it was never going to happen, it wouldn't even be being discussed in the UK. If things are being discussed, and it's now being made public that they're being discussed, in the UK, that is code for we are well on the way through consultations for this. Usually.
As a rule, the Royal Navy doesn't do anything publicly, and the British Armed Forces don't say anything publicly until it's already working. In the UK, basically, the Booker program would have never happened the way the Booker program has, because it wouldn't have been announced until it was pretty much going into service or going into order.
Yeah, I mean,
because they just don't to communicate. They really don't.
I mean, look at Charlie 3. Charlie 3 was basically announced, and literally like 10 minutes later, oh, by the way, the first prototype's done. Yeah.
You go, no, that's really quick, and they go, well, we've been working it for about the last 10 years. Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just, we're announcing this. Oh, it's done. The thing is, it's one of the things where it does mean, however, that the government does telegraph quite well when things are happening, because if they're talking about doing it, that means they're already well underway, which is a good sign.
They're probably already doing it.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Well,
Because
we're only getting less than 150 tanks for now. Here's the thing, it wouldn't surprise me...
we haven't got that many hulls to modernise.
Yeah. I would point out the fact that this is basically keeping our tank production facilities on life support, which is basically what was needed. It wouldn't surprise me if some of the money that we get, not this parliament, but next parliament, does go into making sure we can at least maintain a division of armour. Whereas we can't right now. But what the Challenger 3 program does is it stretches out the death rattle of the the UK's tank production and manufacturing capability to a point where it can then
Actually, rebuilding it.
Yeah, this is but yes, but even so, Alex, without investment after it, it's going to die again. So it's basically laying the groundwork. It's laying the groundwork for an ability to revitalize if money is provided.
I would say there is something coming after it, which will probably do that job.
Oh, completely. I wouldn't surprise me if it did, but that's probably going to be. It's probably going to come out.
No, there's quite an obvious option. No, have you noticed that the quietly telegraphed what was supposed to replace the Warrior?
You mean-
Ajax.
And what has been quietly telegraphed, if you look through all the details of this?
There's something needed to operate alongside Ajax?
Yeah, there's no mention of Ajax replacing Warrior anymore.
Well,
Or
Warrior.
if there is, I missed it.
Well, Warrior needs to be replaced. Politely, it wasn't the best IFV in the world during its heyday.
Hey, I'll have you know, I have literally wrecked one of those, rolling it, trying to make it roll over. It was excellent.
Look, no, Warriors. No, look, I'm not saying Warrior's bad, but when it stands toe to toe with Bradley and BMP3, and I'm sat there and I'm going,
They haven't been upgraded the same. That's the thing. The Bradley started out roughly the same. The Americans have been upgrading Bradley, whereas Warrior's been difficult British debate about what we're going to do about it.
Yeah, if Warrior had received a 25mm rapid fire and a powered turret, it'd be so much better. Like, if they'd have switched the Raden for a different gun, you'd have a much better vehicle.
They were planning for 40mm case ammunition. That would have been a very
That would have been a decent upgrade, yeah. But to move back to the... we really did go off the rails on that one. C-Dollars asks, how many ships were able to be built as a result of the cancellation of the 6 QE battleship HMS Agincourt? This is one for Clark, really.
How many ships were able to be built?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Well, the small tube boilers go to Courageous.
Yeah, so that's Courageous and Glorious, in case anyone missed that.
The AH guns, I think, probably go to...
Furious. Yeah, it's Furious, isn't it? It's a cut down.
That's for the rest. Nothing really gets built.
Yeah.
And actually, the yard space which was built in wasn't used to anything else. And you know the reason they used for not building it?
The war was
Not
going to be
completing it.
over. The war was going to be over, wasn't it?
No. It's the only one which gets a different reason.
Oh.
They already built
It's too complicated. It's too complicated. It's too complicated. And that's the thing is, they were building in the yard which built HMS Queen Elizabeth. So if it's too complicated for them to build a second ship of the same class,
Oh.
then that ship is not a Queen Elizabeth, or not a bog standard Queen Elizabeth.
Oh.
Where was QE built
This
again?
is where me and Drac. But this is where me and Drac had the fun time with it, because when we're looking at going, what? What's going on here? Why is this coming up? What's this one at this moment? Because we looked at all the others and they all cancelled for obvious reasons. And Queen Elizabeth is built in Her Majesty's Dockyard, Portsmouth.
Very interesting.
Portsmouth Dockyard. The same dockyard where, of course, they built a few other interesting things. And the Royal Navy has a habit of building very interesting things in that dockyard. Also, I do love the idea that Fisher preferred to say it was too complicated for them to build, rather than say they couldn't build. And instead of going, it's Portsmouth Dockyard. These are the people who you literally go to build all sorts of constructions in the past whenever you need something very specialist built.
Indeed.
Hmm.
James is now also, I think James is also now suddenly joined the...
C-Dollars is asking...
We are investigating what happened to this ship and what was going on. It's interesting.
So C-Dollars is specifically asking now, no ships were built in the yard in its place. It wasn't cleared to build destroyers or cruisers. He's asking.
Nope. No.
Well, there you are then.
Officially, it was kept clear in case ships had received damage and needed to be urgently repaired.
Well, there you are then. So, next question is... Ruinon, can a fleet get Dragoon into a firearms familiarization course run by Leslie or one of the more armed members of the UK division of the Clark clan? I suppose I could drop it. I suppose it's something I could do if I have the time or the inclination, but I see no real need to upskill myself in firearms at this time.
Next time you're down here, me and Drac will take you shooting.
Typical gunnery officer asks, question 3, in terms of open-topped AFVs, why do you think the US and other major military powers stopped designing open-topped AFVs like in World War II? Was it because of NBC protection? For example, most of the US SPG, SPHs started having closed fighting compartments in the 1960s. NBC was part of it. There was also a desire to, with the way in which the battlefield was becoming more like World War II was already a fire-heavy environment, and by that I mean in terms of fires being available to all sides. Any other but when you started getting things like rocket-propelled grenades, which were flexible and could be used to, you know, have shrapnel warheads or HE frag warheads, the frag grenades proliferating rather rapidly across the world with, you know, good throw angles. Grenade launchers proliferating either on rifles or as separate weapons carried by infantry. The ability to have your vehicle fully enclosed and protected from shrapnel was seen as basically entry level for a vehicle that was expected to go near front lines. Even the Russians figured it out fairly quickly. There's a reason why the BTR-60 gets a roof. Because they go in to put down a rebellion, I think it's either Hungary or Czechoslovakia, and they lose a lot of men, because the BTRs don't have roofs. And the BTR-60 rather rapidly gets a roof.
Well done, comrade.
But yeah, it's basically, we can afford to have fully enclosed vehicles now, so there's no downsides to not having them fully enclosed. 9631 asks, have you seen Leicester's version of a refit hood? No, I have not. I will have a quick look.
Shall I throw it? So, I got the website open. Shall I
let's have a look.
show you all?
Yeah, let's have a look.
Leicester, are you British?
Leicester's version of a refit hood. I can't find it.
The standard hood looks fine.
I'm trying to find this and I can't.
They've only got one hood.
Yeah, I can't find this at all. Yeah, I'm trying to find it and I can't. Yeah, I can't find it. Yeah. Okay, in that case then I haven't seen it and I don't think I can find it. Typical Gunnery Officer, what is the intention of US Sherman tanks firing smoke or Willy Pete shells at German tanks during a tank-on-tank engagement? Do you think it's not a good tactic of trying to destroy German tanks by lobbing smoke rounds to get closer? Do you think British tactics and tank doctrine is much better and suitable for countering German tanks? Again, Gunnery Officer, with the whole everyone else's doctrine or kit compared to the British and trying to make me say the British are better. You really need to stop phrasing questions like this.
Gunnery Officer, don't worry, you've exposed him enough as a Francophile. You don't need to keep doing it.
Well, basically, the whole thing with US tankers, and again, this is something I heard about the Chieftain say, is basically the US tankers will fire whatever shells at the target they deem relevant at that particular moment. If they think they can get through with AP, they'll hit them with AP. If they want to shroud their view, they'll hit them with smoke or Willy Pete. If they think HE is more prevalent at that moment, they'll hit them with HE. This is something we see tankers do across the board, from Germany to Italy to French to Polish, Russian, British,
and most often, I have to admit, tankers will see, if they see a target, will fire whatever they have in the gun because they've got a second to shoot the target before it shoots at them.
Yeah, and also
Wait, I found it.
Yeah, and also it's quicker to clear the breach that way than it is to clear it any other way.
Yeah.
Wait, I found it. I
Okay.
found the refit hood.
Okay, let's have a look. Put an image in. But
Sorry, she's
but-
not called Hood. She's called Anson.
Oh, it's literally, it's a very soft refit.
She's also got bow torpedo tubes.
It's acceptable. It's acceptable. That's all I'm gonna say. It's acceptable. You should Minecraft watch it. In another fantasy story, the main character, had used wind power magic to repel sailing ships. How effective would it be in real life? Well, it depends entirely on the magical scale of the setting, what the character is capable of, what the rules of that universe say, how the magic works. Is it limited? Is it unlimited? How much can you generate? Is it controlling and adapting the wind, or is it generating new wind? It's going to depend entirely on how it works, and with the limited information you've given, it's really hard to make a judgment on that. Typical gunnery officer asks, do you think McNamara tried to replace all F-104s on the USAF fleet with the F-4 when the Vietnam War escalated? Did McNamara know the F-104 would get easily mauled over North Vietnam by SAMs, AA, and MiGs, unlike the faster F-4? Whoa, hold on. What is this F-105 slander I am hearing here? The F-105 didn't get mauled. It just took the expected losses you would expect a bombing aircraft to take when flying into opposed airspace with a decent air defense network. Losses that were well within what the US expected doctrinally, using it in that role. There's this constant myth that they got mauled and the F-4s came in to escort them and save them, and it's like, that's not what happened. They just took the losses you would expect them to take, whether they were escorted or not. Anyone else got anything to say on that, or have I pretty much hit the nail on the head?
Pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
You should Minecraft watch it ask. What if someone in the US had a bright idea in 1935 and started producing the M4 Sherman earlier? Say someone in the US had a glimpse of the Panzer III or IV. You should Minecraft watch it. The Sherman is not a response to the Panzer III or IV. The M2 is a response to the Panzer III or IV. The M2, as built, is pretty much an even match for the early marks of Panzer III with the 37. The M3 is a match for the Panzer III or IV. The M4 is just a refined version of the M3. You won't get the M4 in 1935. You get the M2. If you want a medium tank for the US in 1935, the M2 is what you get. And then the M2 is adapted into the M3, and the M3 is then refined into the M4. There's a reason why the tanks develop the way they do. You'd basically just get what happened historically. Because the M4 Sherman isn't really something the US needs in 1935. Typical gunnery officer asks, why did the USAF operate the A7 for a short period of time before the A10 was introduced? Do you think the A7 is just a stopgap for the A10 for the USAF? And why did they use the A7 for the F111 project? To answer your questions in order of asking, I don't know why they used the A7 before the A10 was introduced. Do I think it was a stopgap for the A10 for the USAF? Possibly, but without credible information and sources, I can't say for certain. And why did they use the A7 for the F117 project? I haven't the foggiest.
That was a creepy laugh.
YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if in 1939 every American submarine becomes a copy of USS Nautilus? Congratulations, you've just rendered the American submarine fleet immobile. Because they don't know how to operate a nuclear reactor. Yeah, they don't know how to operate reactors. The US submarine fleet is impotent. they have no way to operate the.
So when talking about nuclear reactors and nuclear submarines and saying the impotent word, that's not really nice. Okay, that can have far too many meanings.
Technically, he hasn't stated
problematic.
what Nautilus.
Yeah, he said.
Yeah.
He said USS. Well, if they've all become the large cruiser submarine Nautilus, well, that's going to lead to shenanigans occurring. Because I think
See,
because I think that V-boat doesn't use tubes fitted for the Mark 14. I think it uses tubes fitted for the older torpedoes. I just need to check on something real quick. I'll be right back. Carry on, lads.
See, this is why you need me, because I think outside the box. You're going to go down the nuclear submarine route, but hey, James remembers other submarine.
And that's why he just called nuclear submariners impotent. So
Oh yeah, they are far from that. Well, then again, they are submariners, and they do live in a tube.
Yeah. We have to hold it in for a very long time.
Poor lads.
Terrible.
Oh, sorry, no, lads and lassesses now, because
Yes, it is.
yeah, I forgot about that bit. The less we say about that, the better, eh?
Yeah, it's yeah. I have done some wandering around submarines, and whilst they are fun to visit, and okay, if it's short trips at the time, some submariners spend in them. I take my hat on a lot of them.
Yeah. Have I ever told you the time when I was in Raleigh? Week 3, I think it is. Or week 2, you get a ship's visit.
Mm-hmm.
We went on board HMS Torbay after she was decommissioned and half stripped out. And she was still ridiculously cramped. And they were like, oh yeah,
and
so, do you look...
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Yeah,
do you want to come join the submarine service? And you're like, nah.
She probably also smelt still.
Probably, yeah.
Because the submarines, they do develop a smell after a while.
Yeah, certainly do. That's why I was happy I went to the surface fleet. I like how Sea Dodders goes, oh, rallied it. I'll read that as, ooh, rallied it. Ooh, friends. Ooh. Oh yeah, I remember that actually. That was Triumph, right?
Okay, fleet. What was that about?
Oh, the dog was barking at something. I just wanted to check she was all right.
Okay.
I've got a fun story about Triumph, actually.
Oh boy.
So, we were operating off the Moray Firth. Is it the Moray Firth? What's the one that's outside of...
Yes.
No, it's the Firth of Clyde. Because we're on that side, waiting to go up to Glenmallan. And we're sailing around in a box, and she silently came out of Fazlamabad, down the Clyde, appeared in this open area, and it was just like, we had it on radar, and it was just like, what the hell is that? Train the EOS camera, you just see Triumph doing about 20 knots. Also stupid. I can't remember what the speed was. She was coming out, and we looked away for like literally 10 seconds, trained the camera back to where she was, and she was gone. It was like, how's she gone? Bridge, there's a submarine.
Yeah.
Triumph, we don't know where she's gone.
Oh dear.
Don't go making weird turns, because, be a bit awkward.
Knight, very quickly.
It would be awkward.
Yeah.
It would be.
Knight, very quickly.
Be a very quick way of decommissioning it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
As I said, you said yes, the Thunder Chief did get mauled. It suffered severe losses. It got so bad pilots were leaving the USAF. Yes, the Thunder Chief suffered losses. Losses that were expected of it, operating in the environment it was operating in. They didn't get unexpectedly mauled, or the type was bad, or it's, wow, unexpected losses of Thunder Chief. No, the losses were entirely expected, and were only counted when the USAF actually brought in the proper procedures for operating in that threat environment once they realized what the threat environment was. They didn't get unexpectedly mauled. As soon as the US realized what the threat environment they were in was, they adapted, and accordingly the losses tapered off.
It's what happens. Sadly enough, people too often these days forget that its losses are what you take in war, sadly.
Right. Next question. Brackman, you have been commissioned by an Imperial shipwright in the Warhammer Fantasy world to design a new class of frontline warship. Based on your knowledge of naval warfare, magic, and the threats of the old world, what type of combat vessel do you propose? What features, armaments, tactics, and tactics would you prioritize? I'm immediately going to the nearest dwarven ship hold and commissioning a fleet of ironclads with immediate effect. Because dwarven ironclads exist, and therefore me building anything else is just silly.
Are you building a spaceship or a surface ship for the fleet?
Warhammer Fantasy. So I'm immediately going to the dwarves, and
Yeah.
because look, the Empire operates what we would know as the classic Age of Sail, so ships of the line, frigates, black powder cannon, etc. But the dwarves exist and operate ironclads up to and including ships that weigh as much as SS Great Eastern. So, politely, the only reason the Imperial fleet isn't swept off the high seas is because the dwarves have deigned not to do it.
Also because the dwarves are probably still arguing over who should do it, how they should do it.
Yeah. So, politely, I'm going to work to build ironclads of my own. I'm going to abandon sail, move over to steam. I'll probably, because, you know, there are dwarven engineers who do sell their services for hire. And also, by kind of doing this, I'll also rediscover steam power in the Empire, which has kind of lost it. After
There
they built
are
the steam
numerous
tanks.
dwarven engineers at the Imperial College in Nuln.
Well,
That
there
could
you
potentially help as well.
Well, there we are then. Not only will I bring the Imperial fleet into the era of steam and iron, but I'll probably also enable the rediscovery of high pressure steam, which will mean we'll also be able to build new steam tanks for the first time in 50 years. So that's also a bonus. So, but yeah, basically I just go through the whole period of I'll basically run through the period from Warrior to HMS Dreadnought. And I don't mean Dreadnought in terms of the Dreadnought battleship. I mean HMS Dreadnought, the ironclad turret ship. My goal will be to get to the ironclad turret ship, HMS Dreadnought. Ideally with breech loading guns, rather than muzzle loading 12-inch.
Okay.
That's basically because if I want to, unless I want to accept being a second rank power to the dwarves, that's basically what I've got to do. I mean, if I'm really lucky, I can nab one of the dwarven engineers that works on the Nautiluses and build submarines as well with self-locomoting torpedoes. Which at that point shoots me to the top rank of naval powers.
To an extent, yes.
Yeah. That's basically what I'm going to do. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, What if in 1942 all American light tanks suddenly become M2012 Chaffees? Well, you've basically given them scout armor that's better than some of the medium tanks they're facing, at least when it comes to firepower. Because the Chaffee, well, a lot of them are going to have to be cannibalized, mostly for spare parts, but also some of them are going to be sent back to the States to be reverse engineered. So you'll probably have 50% of the strength that you had when the conversion took place. But that's still going to be significant in terms of upgrading firepower and mobility and protection. It is going to mean you're going to have reduced numbers of light tanks until the replacement M3s and M5s, well no, yeah, come off the production line to replace them, but their time on the production line will be short-lived because the Chaffee will replace them by probably 43 once the US has reverse engineered the design. And at that point, the US has the best light tank in the world. Typical gunnery officer asks, opinions on the Bristol Belvedere. Do you think it's a better heavy helicopter than the C-40H and C-46? It's a good heavy lift helicopter. It is not better than the C-47. Sorry, CH-47 or CH-46. The CH-47 and CH-46 are better than the Belvedere in basically every respect that matters. Lift capacity, range, top speed, load capacity, every way that matters. The C-40, CH-47 and CH-46 are better aircraft than the Belvedere. Now, it's not the Belvedere's fault. The Belvedere was designed prior to those two airframes. But the two airframes are better, and it's why they replaced the Belvedere in the Chinook's case. Bone Meal Boy. Had Fisher stayed in post, when does the panel believe he would have allowed 6-inch secondaries instead of 4-inch?
I think as the rate of fire reached the point at which it was providing enough downrange capacity to engage light units like destroyers.
Yep.
And torpedo boats.
Brackman asks, when can we expect a stream of Waves of Steel? At some point, I will get round to it. I just haven't had time yet. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if HMS Agincourt was built instead of being cancelled, aka Britain threw copious amounts of money at the problem? What would it look like and how would it be used? If you believe Dr. Clark, she'd be a QE in most respects, apart from having, I think, small tube boilers and 6 18-inch guns in 3 twin turrets.
So, yeah, and judging by the number of boilers she seems to be going to have, probably would have been a 27, 28 knot ship.
Yeah, so she would have been...
Probably slightly longer as well, but basically would be a fast battleship.
Yeah. And
with 6 18-inch guns.
She would have been a new paradigm, basically.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Would that be the same 15-inch triple turret that they tested on a British Monitor?
Oh, no, James. She wouldn't have 15-inch triples. She was going to have 18-inch twins, we think.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
They did test eventually a 15-inch triple on a Monitor, but that was tested a lot later than World War One.
Yeah, that's what
the triple turrets were taking a long time to go. This is why I said, but they were developing a triple turret. So this is the point I was thinking earlier, was a nice way they'd reach further down the development tree. They have twin turrets, they have 18-inch guns. Going for a 6 18-inch gun ship kind of fits and makes sense with some of the things they were looking at the time.
Okay.
It would have been incredibly interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How it would have worked out.
Right. So next question is: Typical gunnery officer. What is the thought process on the IS-2 having a very large 122mm gun, large for its time, on a tank? Why they install such a big gun by sacrificing the rate of fire? What if the Soviets installed a 100mm naval gun instead on the IS-2? Well, the 122 was picked... Well, first of all, tank guns were moving in that direction anyway. 105, 120s were being considered by basically all of the powers at that point. From Germany through the US through the UK. The Soviets just got there first by accepting not so much a purpose-built gun. They adapted, I think, one of their artillery pieces. They installed such a big gun because it was a way to get a gun that could reliably kill any reasonable German armor, up to and including things like Tiger II, whilst also still having that very vital for the Russians HE load that they valued. And what if the Soviets installed the 100mm naval gun instead on the IS-2? It would have been very, very anti-tank focused, rather than a general-purpose assault tank, which the IS-2 was supposed to be. We see the 100mm anti-tank gun come in on the Su-100 for that tank-killing role. The reason the 122 was adopted was because it was a general-purpose gun. It could kill the German armor, but it could also lug a very, very effective high-explosive round a decent distance with reliable accuracy. YouTube Minecraft Watcher. The panel is sent to 1500 and have to survive to today. You won't age. What shenanigans would you get up to?
1500 and going to today. Oh.
Well, I'm gonna try and found I'm gonna try and found an empire.
I am going to take over an empire. I've been sent to 1500 and I won't age.
I'm probably gonna try and gather myself a reasonable quality of wealth, and then I'm going to do what happened historically. I'm going to try and found a White Raja somewhere with reasonable quality of sanitation and healthcare, either India or Siam, Majapahit, that area, where I could easily carve out a cult of personality for myself as an immortal emperor, gradually bring various parts of the realm under, carve up as much of an empire as I can, and brace for the inevitable encounter with Dr. Clark's empire, and of course the Dutch Eternal King, bringing the Dutch over, because I can see guys sitting there with the East Indian flag behind him, and an army of steam-powered Indian-men. And I don't know what James is doing. I don't know. I'll hire him as like the chief of the navy. That'll do. Yeah, hire him as chief.
Philippe, what I would do is, since I also am not gonna age a day, is I'm gonna move to Transylvania and I'm gonna live in a castle and only come out at night.
But in all seriousness, James, what would you do?
Unquestionable things.
Yeah, but I am probably going to want to carve out an empire. I'm probably going to want to carve out an empire, basically. Africa is full of malaria, so you don't want to go there. If I can pick the right part of India, it can be a decent place to actually settle down in terms of quality of life and infrastructure. I could position myself as power behind the throne in certain nations, although I'd have to basically either become the god deity of whatever I'm doing. So it's probably best to try and pick.
Probably easier to be the power behind the throne, so you can get rid of someone who's problems.
Yeah.
It's not you getting the blame.
Yes, basically.
That's what I do.
I might actually go to Japan. Maybe no. 1500. Actually, do you know what I could do? I could, yeah, 1500. I could go to Formosa. at that point, the remnants of the Ming government are, I believe, in exile there. And if I play my cards right, I could thoroughly modernize the Ming government to resist the encroachment of Westerners on Formosa, and gradually, by increasing the effectiveness of our army while the Qing basically atrophy, as Chinese mainland powers do, gradually subsume more and more of China in short, sharp wars as our technological rate skyrockets, and we gain things like industrialization, the steam engine, actual sewer systems, clean running water, etc. And we spread those.
This is 1500, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Ming did not fall until 1644, so
Well, I suppose I could...
that's a bit early, Fleet.
Well, yes, but the whole point is I'd be spending the time prior to that gathering wealth. Building a power base. And preparing a fleet of ships to conduct that expedition to offer my services to the Ming Dynasty. Because what I'd ideally like to do is I'd ideally like to prevent the full loss of all mainland possessions. I'd like to retain a holdout in the south, rather than losing the entirety of the mainland and being forced to retreat to Hainan and Formosa.
I think I've got a better opinion of what I was going to do.
It's basically...
Now I've thought about it.
Yeah, for each of us, we're basically picking a power to take the reins of. Not so much as the direct ruler of, but the power behind the question.
So, my idea, I'd actually... I'd become a god emperor
Where?
of the known world. Preferably the UK.
Yeah, but you can't...
Depose the king.
You'll have to fight Alex for that one.
That's fine. I've got gunpowder.
So does he.
So I'd take over the UK, create an empire, have enough knowledge to know where the French would have been, kick the French's ass, take France into the great empire that is the UK at the time. It wasn't a great empire at all, but we go with it. Then I would go down to Bavaria. No, not Bavaria. Where does Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 fit in?
No,
So,
Bohemia.
Yeah, go to Bohemia, take over that, kick some people's asses, take over Europe, then create an East India Trading Company, go and find other places, colonize those places, and basically make the world British.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the 1800s, don't make the Americans become Americans.
Yeah, I mean, good luck, because by the time you come round to the East India Company, you'll probably find that my Ming government will have outposts there. And you'll run into steam engines
that's fine.
And ironclads, possibly. So,
That's
good
fine.
luck.
If we got ironclads at the same time, I'll come and kick your ass.
Yeah, good luck. Well, the thing is, I don't know exactly where Dr. Clark's going to go. He said he'd create an empire. He didn't say which one.
Antarctica.
All right, Alex, come on. You've been leaving us on tenterhooks.
You see, the thing is, you're all being very, very patriotic and very lovely, but you're all forgetting some things. What do you need ample supplies of to make the systems which you really need to rule the world?
Drugs. Sorry.
Yeah. So basically, you need iron ore, coal, all these things to make the stuff work. And I'm immortal, right?
Yep.
So my entire policy will be to quiet myself,
To what?
organize myself in the shadows,
Yeah.
setting up organizations in the background. Whilst all of you are happily fighting away, I will keep quiet. And then eventually, all of you will have accidents, and I'll take over.
Well,
That's an idea, actually.
That's very true. But there's a reason.
You do all the hard work of setting everything up, and then I'll appear. And in nicest way, first of all, in nicest way, you'll have to find my base of operations and where I'm working from. And in nicest, and considering I will sit to myself and I will write the whole mythology. And you'll know this is true because eventually there'll be a TV program called Doctor Who about someone who magically solves problems around the world.
So basically, okay, all right. Okay, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna go. I'm going. I'm gonna gradually build up myself to have a reasonable amount of wealth, and then I'm probably gonna gather some people, and we're gonna go to the Americas, and we're gonna form a new nation, and we'll just try and work with the rest of you to just be there. And try not to get involved in other wars if we can avoid it. Either way.
So if we're going to change our stories,
well,
I'm going to have a better one then.
Oh god. Oh dear.
So I'm going to create an organization that allows me to basically create a realistic version of the Bene Gesserit from the Dune.
Guys, I've just had a better thought, an even better thought. You know what we should do, don't you? We should form the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and Women, and all of us combined should direct the flow of time, rather than trying to outdo each other. We should all of us direct the flow of world events to avoid the pitfalls and increase the outcome for humanity as a whole. After all, we want to get to a point where, you know, everything is either as we remember.
So we all kill Fleet first because he's annoying us.
Just a minute.
Yep.
Well, you realise.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh god. Typical gunnery officer asks.
Oh.
Opinions on the S-300 system for the Soviets in the Cold War era. Do you think it's better than the Cold War versions of the Patriot missile? Well, the thing with S-300 and Patriot is that it's one of those things where S-300 and Patriot aren't direct comparisons. There are slight differences in the requirements for both systems. S-300 leans more into the area air defense system, rather than interception of ballistic or cruise missile threats, whereas Patriot, while it can do area air defense, does lean into ballistic missile defense and cruise missile defense more. It's very much horses for courses. Each power knew what it wanted out of its systems, and therefore they set out to actually get what they wanted out of those systems.
Pretty much.
I think the S-300 is better launch platform though.
Possibly.
You get the rotating 8-cell drum mags on the Slavas.
Oh, that's true.
And the Kirovs.
I mean, I think they're more referring to land-based since they're talking about Patriot.
Yeah, I know.
YouTube Minecraft watcher asks, how would things go if USS Cyclops was to appear today, the Bermuda Triangle ship? Well, first of all, she's only one of many ships that are presumed lost in the Triangle, but also people go, oh, it's a Collier, and it's Cyclops, and she was lost in the Triangle. There'd be a lot of theories, but no one will be able to prove anything, and she'd probably be turned into a museum. Basically, she'd probably be turned into a museum, because she's an example of US Navy Colliers of the era, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Gunnery officer, even though the B-24 was the most mass-produced bombers of World War II, do you think the air and ground crews hated the B-24 because of its poor handling and maintenance issues? Do you think the B-24 crew suffered more casualties than the crews on the B-17? I have had no indication that air and ground crews hated the B-24. From what I understand, the B-24 was well respected by the air crews who flew it. They didn't hate it at all. And of course the B-24 crews suffered more casualties than B-17 crews. There were more B-24s. There were more squadrons of B-24s. So I think it's, you know, it follows that if there are more of them knocking around, you're gonna lose more of them.
Sadly enough, true.
1971. Is it not accurate to say that the Bristol Belvedere and Piasecki CH21 Shawnee / Workhorse are first-generation tandem rotors? Yes, that is entirely accurate. Brackman, in the world of Iron Harvest, how might naval warships be adapted to fit the dieselpunk aesthetic and mechanized warfare of the setting? Would these ships carry landing parties composed of smaller mechs? And if so, what might their roles and deployment methods look like? Honestly, Iron Harvest is and is not dieselpunk. There are dieselpunk elements, but it is very much a world in which traditional technology also exists. So, navally, it wouldn't surprise me if ships look no different than historical. There's very little reason for naval design and development to change. Because from what we understand, airships are a relatively recent thing, and from looking at them, they're really not the sort of thing that would lead to a change in the way naval development happens either. And in mechs as well, mechs are land-based, doesn't really change how ships develop. Although, with larger mechs carrying naval-sized guns, it might provide a lot of leeway for nations to keep their gun foundries and gun pits going for larger caliber weapons, even when they're not building warships. YouTube Minecraft Watcher, what is the panel's thoughts on the Amazon River radar scans in the past 2 years? In the scans, there were confirmed cities along the river that suggest that De Orleanes' claim was real. No, they don't. They don't suggest that De Orleanes' claim was real. There were no cities of gold in the Amazon. It was a woozle worked up by the explorers to goad themselves onwards into more and more insanity to try and find a mythical city of gold that didn't exist. And I don't doubt there were large settlements in the Amazon at various points, founded by tribes and proto-civilizations that may have died out before we found them. But there was never, ever a city of gold in the Amazon.
Well, the thing is, it might have been gold paint, because one of the problems we have, and this is the point which comes up, this is the point that comes through in some of the things that come through, is you have to remember that we get from the Victorians, especially in the UK, but also around the world, a very bland palette. It used to be quite common for things to be painted far more ornately than they are even today. So there might have been a golden city, but it might have been more of a paint golden city rather than a... Which honestly could be quite sensible if you're considering heat, etc., and wanting to reflect heat and maybe keep the inside of something cool. It might be, the stone especially, it might come off with golden aspects.
Yeah, the thing with that is that we know it's a woozle because we actually have the thing from which it originates, surprisingly, that has survived to the present day. It was a recorded conversation between a native and a conquistador, where the native told the conquistador of a practice where they did a certain thing, where they threw gold away into a lake, and the conquistador immediately jumped to the conclusion that, well, if you're throwing gold away into the lake, there must be a city of gold.
Yes and no, because that is one origin of it, and that is one of the origin stories, but there's actually others as well. I know because there was a television program which did this, which I was involved in some of the work towards, and there were lots of random bits which came through.
Fair enough.
It's one of those interesting times.
Right, okay, fantastic. Well, that means we can actually wrap up fairly well. So where were we? Yenna asks, if Germany in World War II somehow managed to win the Battle of Britain and offered a fair peace treaty on January 1st, 1941, would the British accept it? If no, why? If yes, what would happen after that? Would the US still go to war with Germany, or the other way around? Germany winning the Battle of Britain doesn't get them the ability to offer the British anything. Congratulations, you control the skies over Britain. Now what?
They're going to fight you on the beaches.
Yeah, well, that's if they even launch the invasion to begin with, which I consider highly unlikely. Even if Göring says he controls the skies, launching the invasion is still gonna probably not be something that happens.
The British are unlikely to accept terms. The Martin Baker gets rapidly thrown into production, and the Second Battle of Britain begins shortly.
Yeah,
and also the trouble with winning the Battle of Britain is that it's fundamentally a misnomer because there's always large areas of British skies which the Germans can't get into in a sufficient enough force to actually dominate British training and British flight training and preparation of aircraft.
Yeah, there's always, there's no way Germany can win the Battle of Britain. It's just not something they can do. By 1940,
but if they did somehow, I still think that's Britain declaring that agreeing the peace.
No, because it's basically you control the skies over Britain. Okay, big whoop. Now what are you gonna do? You still haven't defeated us. You're still not driving tanks through the South Devon.
You don't want to drive tanks through South Devon.
You get what I mean.
We do all sorts of things to you in Cornwall and Devon. You don't want to bring tanks down here.
You don't want to bring anything to the country.
You wouldn't have tanks left after we'd finish with you.
No, not at all.
Well, it gets even worse if you try and take them near Liverpool.
Yeah.
You'll find all your tanks are up on bricks.
Yenna, it doesn't matter if they offer. Yenna, the only fair treaty that the British will accept is you withdraw from France, you withdraw from Poland, you withdraw from the Netherlands, you withdraw from Belgium, you hold free and fair elections. That's no, Ruinon, questions are still open. Questions are not closed. No, questions are not closed.
It's sort of a case of you have to remember the British are kind of like the Americans. British and Americans have a very similar doctrine of war. Once war has begun, it doesn't finish till dictating peace terms.
Yeah, this is the thing.
That's it. They don't do these things. For you to get Britain to the point in which it's going to agree to terms, you would have to.
You'd have to
change who was in power, who was the monarch, who was the everything.
Yeah, there is no way that there's no way. There is no way that the Germans can offer any sort of terms aside from we surrender that the British will accept. Oh, what is... Who is annoying? AE say the Brits are too stubborn to... No, the Brits have just decided that they... No, the Brits aren't too stubborn. It just makes...
It's exactly what.
Well, no, it's just that they're too logical
to
accept.
Stubborn and proud of it.
No, there is the stubbornness, but also...
We are stubborn and proud.
But also, logically, there's nothing for us to be gained by accepting. Yes, let us...
I mean, there is...
I mean, let us betray all of our allies and basically guarantee a continental hegemon that will then come back and hit us again when they think it's convenient. Yeah, no, don't think so.
Yeah, that's the big problem with the Brits. The Brits have no faith he won't come back again at them, so the nicest way they are, yeah. That's always the problem. The Brits have no faith he won't come back to them again, so that's why they always keep going.
Because we're not stupid.
Yeah, we're not. It's just there's no benefit to it.
Yeah, you can argue that. You can certainly argue that it's because we're not stupid.
Yeah. Brackman asks, considering the conditions and events surrounding the sinking of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald in 1975, what plausible measures, whether technical, procedural, or design-related, could have prevented the disaster or saved the ship and the crew? Now, I am very much not familiar with the sinking of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, but luckily, we have a merchant sailor on the panel, who might be familiar.
Sorry, what's the question?
Damn it, James!
Sorry, I had a work message.
I hate James going. I hate you at this point.
Considering
James
the
is going. I
conditions,
hate you.
considering the conditions and events surrounding the sinking of the SS Edmunds Fitzgerald in 1975, what plausible measures, whether technical, procedural, or design-related, could have prevented the disaster or saved the ship and the crew?
Ah, yes. You should have just said, look at the question from Brackman and Q&A, and I would have... Yeah. We'll know that for next time.
Found it.
The issue is, I don't think we actually really understand. Edmund Fitzgerald kind of sank. All that we know is she sank through some form or another. Thing is, I think she went down so quick, nothing can really be done to help it, except for just the inherent design issues of a lake freighter just being long thin and just being a lake freighter. I think that's just the issues. I don't know, to be perfectly honest. Oh, actually, hang on. No, I do remember one thing. SOPs for locking down hatches and maintenance for hatches. Because there's something that vaguely sparks something in my brain that says something about hatches weren't good.
No, the hatches were terrible.
Yeah. Okay then. So I was thinking along the same lines.
Right. So.
Yeah, actually, sorry, before we go, I think overall design was also improved since Edmund Fitzgerald, because if you look at the more modern freighters, they follow the same design-esque designs as modern bulk carriers, so the accommodation and engine room down aft, instead of having the split bridge forward, engines and all that jazz all the way down aft with a big middle bit of cargoes. So if a ship does start to sink, you've got some poor sods down forward who has to run 500 to 600 feet down aft to go to a lifeboat or a life raft, whereas everything's just contained in one place. That's all I can figure, to be perfectly honest.
Right.
That's
so,
pretty good.
Next question is okay, we have enough questions to see us through the end, so now questions are closed. I wanted to get a few more in to see us through to the end, but now questions are closed. Right. So, 1971 asks, am I right to think that if the British took over Russia somehow, none of the Project Number Soviet ships would not get built? Well, yes, none of them would get built because if the British are somehow in control of Russia, they and the Russians will be too busy shooting at each other because there will be a constant campaign of vicious resistance across the entire country. So nothing will be getting built.
Probably.
YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if the planned German coup in 1938 by the monarchists not only occurred, but also succeeded? Well, then Germany will be restored as a, hopefully, constitutional monarchy with Kaiser Wilhelm III, because Kaiser Wilhelm II will probably not be permitted to return to lead Germany by the Allies. Britain and France. And Germany will...
No, Wilhelm, you did it before. You're not doing it again.
Yeah. And Wilhelm III is seen as a more moderate figure by both the German monarchists, the German public, and the Allies generally. A lot more hands-off as a monarch, as he was as a prince. Now, the thing is, this goes two ways. Either the Allies can then demand in exchange for their tacit approval Germany reapplies to Versailles, or they can go, well, let's renegotiate Versailles in such a way that we let you keep some of what you've gained in order to, balance out Europe again. So you'll probably see a renegotiation of Versailles, especially as Russia sort of rises up in the east. In fact, what you'll probably see is instead of the Munich crisis, you'll probably have the Munich negotiations. And the only reason I'm changing the name is because it's not going to be over the Czechs, it's going to be right. So what's this new German state going to be allowed to have and not allowed to have?
Mm-hmm.
So I reckon there will be some form of Anglo-German naval agreement. So basically the Germans will be brought into the treaty system. And you probably will still see the Scharnhorsts. What follows the Scharnhorst, though, probably won't be the Bismarcks. It'll probably be, if they're allowed 35,000 tons, it'll probably be a slightly enlarged version of the Scharnhorsts, carrying 9 13.8s to line up with Second London. So not 15s, but 13.8s, which the Germans could probably work up a design for, and it fits with the calibers they like to have as, some of the ones they've developed in the past. So Bismarck, there probably will still be Bismarck and Tirpitz, because those are names redolent of German history, whether monarchic or fascist.
Yeah.
Which will give the Germans a nice quartet of relatively well-protected, fast battleships, which is probably what they'll then aim to maintain. You'll probably have a rolling replacement program going forwards from that. Whether or not they get carriers, I'm not sure. But you'll basically have the Germans... The Germans will probably negotiate with the Poles over Danzig. Probably say, can we talk about it? And there'll probably be negotiations between the Poles and the Germans, mediated by the British and the French, rather than the Germans doing silly things like trying to start a war over it. And that what will probably happen is you'll probably have an agreement where the Germans will probably regain control over Danzig as a city and try and get a land.
It's Kaiser Wilhelm, is it? It's Kaiser Wilhelm, isn't it?
The third, yeah.
You call it the dual monarchy. Poland accepts having a monarch as their head of state. In return, they stay as de facto an independent country. You do the Austro-Hungary version of the Austro-Hungary.
The Poles are not going to. The Poles are not going to accept that. The nationalist Polish government at the time is not going to accept that at all. They are done having foreign heads of state. That's what
you can say that, but in return, they get the Germans guaranteeing their safety and their national security and their sovereignty. So if the Russians come to try to invade them, they automatically have the German army coming straight to assist them.
Oh, okay, the way to probably do that then is to put a German prince on the throne rather than Wilhelm III itself. So actually have Poland adopt the Kingdom of Poland bit, but basically you give them a prince that is linked to the German crown, to the Hohenzollern crown, but isn't in the direct line of succession. So there is that dynastic link, but the Poles can go...
They probably get the admiral.
Yeah, but the Poles can go at that point, he's not in line to the German throne, he's probably going to be a Polish king with links to Germany, rather than a German king on the Polish throne, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is what they're going to they're going to demand that at minimum. Which is going to cut down barriers to trade between Germany and Poland, and probably result in them working together to construct a vast line of fortifications in eastern Poland, and say, "Come on, Russia, come have a go if you think you're hard enough." And it's probably also going to lead to when Stalin does inevitably try Finland, because he's going to think that he can try Finland, there's going to be interesting shenanigans happening over there. Also, no Anschluss, which is going to be good. And poor old Horthy is in Hungary going, I don't think revision's going to happen because I've got no one to back me up. Problems. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if all victims of the Bermuda Triangle suddenly appeared today, both assumed and confirmed? Well, there would be a massive uproar, and probably a science fiction film will be made about how it happened. But apart from that, there'll be a lot of things going. There may even be a Bermuda Triangle museum formed to house them all.
It would be interesting.
Lions asks, how would World War II doctrine change if at the outset they had a bomber capable that had the same capacity and range as the B-52 did when it entered service? The US bombs everybody from the continental United States. The scale of the bombing campaign increases dramatically because you no longer have the logistical tail of having to cross an ocean by ship.
Seriously, do you imagine the sheer amount of wear you're putting into aircraft flying across the Atlantic with a full load of bombs to drop bombs and coming back again?
If an aircraft's built to do it, that's acceptable.
That doesn't mean you do it. No, you do it when you have to. You don't do it if you don't have to. If you've got Britain as a base to bomb Europe, you move the aircraft to Britain. You bomb from Britain, and you can bomb anywhere you want in Europe at that point. And you send the bombs to Britain. You don't bomb from the continental United States.
Yeah, but thing is that benefit is offset by the fact that the ease of logistical maintenance of the airframe is much easier in the continental United States.
No, it isn't.
It is, because you've got no bottleneck of shipping and no U-boats to shoot things out from under you.
Why is shipping considered a bottleneck? Think about the sheer number of convoys which crossed the Atlantic during World War II. Okay?
Yeah.
Then ask yourself, how many of those convoys were attacked? And out of those convoys attacked, how many ships were lost?
Well, yes, this is all true, and I understand what you're saying, but I would argue if you've got an aircraft that can fly from the continental United States, why do you need to add that extra step in?
Why do you want them, in a nice way, the amount of maintenance those airframes are going to require from doing all that extra flying?
That's
the sheer amount of work. You're going to wear your entire air fleet out in like 5 weeks. You've got them, every operation they're doing a full maximum length flight.
Well, if we're talking about the B-52 as the specs, crossing the Atlantic and back again, that's just Tuesday for the B-52.
With a full bomb load.
Well, no, it wouldn't be, would it? You'd have if we're talking about the amount of bomb load the B-52 can carry, you wouldn't have to carry a full bomb load to be effective.
So you want to fly it the whole way across and back, and you want it going up with empty bomb base?
Well, you can shoot. Well, it's up to you. It depends on what you want to do, but you don't have to. I don't know why you're so against having them in the continental United States.
I just think it's going to literally wear your air fleet out to the point at which it's pointless.
I think
you're either going to carry such a small bomb load. It's pointless to risk such a valuable such a large aircraft with such a small bomb load. Or alternatively, it's going to be an absolute maintenance nightmare, and you're going to spend those aircraft spending more hours in terms of being under maintenance than you are actually going to be using them for, and it's going to seem pointless.
I feel like that's not how. By that logic, then, wouldn't the B-29 not work? Because at that point, you're saying then because they're operating at the limits.
You're saying that you're offering that's the argument for the Pacific where you don't have the option of basing closer until you take the islands. In Europe, you have the basing facility. So why do it? Why stress your airframe that much? why give yourself that many problems and that many risks?
I mean, if an aircraft is so badly designed that flying out to its normal range and back again with the bomb load you expect it to carry is overly stressing the airframe, then I seriously question what idiot designed the damn
That's not
thing.
what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying, Sleep. But there's a difference between doing that, being able to do that, and doing that every day. Doing that as a bombing campaign requires. That's the equivalent of saying, look, you know what? My car has a maximum speed of going 150 miles an hour. So I'm going to drive it everywhere non-stop at 150 miles an hour every single day. How often am I going to need to replace that engine? Not thinking of things of like, I'm going to be able to, the crashes and other issues. Just think of how much more often I'm going to have to replace that engine and engine components than if I use it moderately.
True. That's a good point.
So, yes, you've got the capacity to do that long-range capability. That's great. But that's kind of like during the Libyan campaign, Britain could fly Tornadoes and Eurofighters from the UK and drop targets in Libya. Was it sensible or sensible in terms of an operation? Just because you can do something doesn't mean necessarily you should if you don't have to. If there is an easier, simpler, safer way to do it that way. Because world wars are marathons, not sprints.
Yeah. I suppose there is that. Yeah. Yeah, it's... I suppose you'd basically... You'd really... That's true. I mean... I suppose if you base it in Britain, you can bomb things like Romania from Britain. Which makes it a lot easier to do that.
Basically, your scope with a reduced bomb load is 4,000 miles.
What?
That's your radius of action.
Well, I'd say with a full bomb load, your radius of action would be 4,000 miles. And with reduced, you'd get the full 8,000 combat radius. Out of a... Because you'd slap an extra fuel tank in the bomb bay. If we're talking about B-52 but World War II.
Sweet. Okay. I think you're misunderstanding something. Now, the ferry range for a B-52 is 10,000 miles, right?
Yep.
That's its empty, full field up range. 10,000 miles.
Yeah.
So its combat range is 8,800 miles. Right?
Yeah.
If you're flying out and returning, what's the range you can actually fly out and return to and cover 8,800 miles?
Well, shouldn't that then... Well, then the combat range should be 4,000 miles, not 8,000. Why would you list a combat range of 8,000 miles if you can't...
It's how far you can fly, so your route.
Fair enough.
So that's why I always tell... that's just why, look at the ferry range. That tells you how far it can go. No bombs, only fuel.
Yes, Steve, even without mid-air refueling, the range increase of World War II assets is huge. 4,000 miles gets you a massive chunk of targeting capability if you're operating from home. It doesn't matter that we don't have mid-air refuelers. It really doesn't. From bases in the Aleutians, B-52s can hit Japan if the US wants to be brave.
And that was also one of the reasons why I was slightly worried by the fact that, that you were trying to go across the Atlantic, because the Atlantic, the flight from the UK to the USA alone It's 4,450 miles roughly.
It is going to mean that the ferry flights are going to be easier. You're not going to have to do a
The
stop.
ferry flight, you ferry the aircraft straight across. That's fine.
Yeah, it's going to be great. That's going to be great for the air crews and the navigators. That's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, but it's basically you can get a lot of stuff. And honestly, considering the range, you could almost fly the aircraft across bombed up if you wanted to.
I mean, honestly, Dr. Clark, at that point, yeah, you could fly them across bombed up, and then and you could also use them if you've set the bomb bay up right to deliver certain special items as well.
Yeah,
That's actually kind of...
that'd be very useful.
Yeah, that actually would be quite...
But
like, each ferry fight brings the newspapers. Jokes aside. Oh, dear. Okay, so...
Hello.
So I think this is now the last question. I think. YouTube
Oh, so just in
Minecraft
time.
Watcher asks, what if Lusitania, Britannic, Empress of Ireland suddenly appeared with all crew and passengers that either died or were missing? Not quite mass hysteria, but it's gonna be yeah.
There's an issue with this question because they're asking what would happen if the Olympic No, hang on.
Lusitania.
Sorry,
Lusitania,
I'm being an idiot.
Yeah, Lusitania, Titanic, Britannic, and Empress of Ireland suddenly appeared with all the crew and passengers that either died or were missing. Well, aside from the somewhat macabre implications of bringing people back to life who died,
You're assuming that they return back alive.
Yeah, but didn't
That's
nobody
cold.
die on Olympic?
well, no, Olympics
Yeah.
not in the list. Where are you people getting Olympic from? Lusitania, Titanic, Britannic, and Empress of Ireland. No mention of Olympic.
I had Olympic there.
There is no. Lusitania, Titanic, Britannic, Empress of India. I'll say it for the fourth time. Lusitania, Titanic,
Ireland.
Britannic, Empress of Ireland. No Olympic. Well, first of all, they all get shunted into a museum somewhere because, well, examples of the ocean or golden age of the ocean liners, including one of which, including two which are three of them are exceptionally famous, and one of them is a tragedy that needs to be remembered, which is Empress of Ireland, and the other three need no introduction.
What's the Titanic?
Lusitania, Titanic, and
There
Britannic.
was some boats built in Liverpool, I think.
Oh my God! Don't.
But I'm not sure.
I will have merchant sailors coming down on me if you don't cease and desist. Stop.
Well, no, please.
The
Titanic was like a
Was
giant
Portsmouth?
boat they built around. However, it's that. I
Stop
don't know, Fleet likes your mum jokes.
Stop it. A lot of people become very rich, probably. Well, no, I don't know why a lot of people would become rich. Because, well, the people who've come back have no assets. Because they have no assets, apart from what they have on them, physically.
Anymore.
There's going to be a lot of shenanigans. There's going to be a lot of interviews conducted once people realise where they are. And when they are. But there'll be a... Britannic and Titanic will probably be moored in Belfast.
The insurance claims are going to be astronomical.
If they're even valid at all, Dr. Clark.
Huh?
I don't think.
Oh, that'll be a whole political fallout if the insurance claims weren't. It's just going to be
Well,
lawsuit after lawsuit.
well, they're dead. These people were dead. The fact that they're alive again.
When they're now alive.
Yes, but they can't claim on insurance because they were dead.
Yes, they
Yes,
can.
but it's your fault. It's your fault they were dead.
If someone's reported dead or they sound to be alive, they can still sue.
Their claims can't be honoured. It would be silly
They can
to.
be. They can be.
I don't think they can recover their money from
Because
Lloyd's.
it was
personally.
specific. 'Cause there used to be a type of fraud that still exists to this day, where people fire false death certificates to commit inheritance or insurance fraud.
Oh, it's Lloyd's reclaiming the money. Well, the thing is, Lloyd's can't reclaim.
Like, you can.
Well,
There you can.
I think.
It'll be.
They will.
It'll be incredibly interesting.
Well, the thing is,
Is all I will say.
well, if Lloyd's, if Lloyd's tries to recover
Well,
their
police
money,
is trying to figure out what they shouldn't. You're thinking like a nice person. Think like an insurance executive.
well, yes, but the publicity from attempting to do so from the descendants of victims of the Titanic, the backlash would be extortionate.
Bad publicity versus the amount of money I get to enjoy.
Well, they won't, because the scale of the finances will not exist. The amount of money they will be claiming.
Again, fleets, please go and look up what insurance and reinsurance and all the joys and days of maritime insurance.
No, I am
how it
aware,
goes through.
but look,
Yeah.
if they try to claim them, if Lloyd's tries to claim the money back, it'll be unpopular. The amount they will ask for physically will not be able to be offered by the people they are claiming it from, nor will they be able to raise that amount
No,
of money.
please, no, you're thinking it's the wrong thing. You're thinking they're claiming it's oh, good lord, my dear boy. No, probably Lloyd's and the people involved will be suing the insurance of the firms which were supposed to be doing the searching and recovering and failed to recover them.
You mean?
Mm-hmm.
It'll be insurance versus insurance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no,
And it will get
Steve,
them incredibly
Steve,
complicated because those companies claimed payment under the insurance for doing the research recovery and doing those things, duties, which
Steve.
is now proved to be false.
Steve, that's not what will happen. Germany won't search Lusitania's hold and say that they were right to sink it, because the present German government has no connection to the government that ordered the sinking of Lusitania.
No, the nicest way, Fleet. If you don't think there won't be someone who will try and do that, there will be. There will, and probably will be. They probably will be the German government.
Whoa. Yeah, exactly. Did I say someone wouldn't claim it, or did I say the German government?
No,
wouldn't
it
claim
probably would be the German government, because if they don't do it, someone else will.
Well, why would the German government want that political hot potato on there?
Because would they rather control that political hot potato themselves, or would they want someone else to control it?
You gotta remember, one of the biggest rules of politics: control the narrative.
I mean, the race will be between the British government and the German government to get there first and make things disappear.
Yeah.
No, I feel like that whole bit's aggressive. Like, I know control and everything, but
Yeah,
neither side
You
is
are
going to want...
aggressively nice. This is the trouble, Fleet. You are a nice person.
Nicety don't have anything to do with it. To
You
announce
are.
for the Germans to announce that will be seen as overly nationalistic and glorifying the monarchist regime, which would be suicide for them. For the British to announce what was in her.
Depends which political party in Germany.
Yeah, and it's also a case of don't underestimate the power of national guilt. And he can go, well, we're not actually guilty for this.
It does
We
seem,
were right
but
to do
also,
it.
but also, it's known what she was carrying anyway. So what's the point?
There's
We
a difference
already
between
know-
knowing something and being able to prove something.
If it's it's a disputed fact, Fleet.
It's
The claims either way.
It's not though. We know what she was carrying. We know she was carrying war material. That's not up for debate. That's
Yeah, but the exact content of the war material is.
And it's also a contested claim.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, also the point would be she's a lioness. She shouldn't have been fired upon anyway, carrying war material or not.
That's a grey area that we shouldn't get into.
Can't you fire if they're under flag in a wartime nation?
There's a difference between firing
It's a lot.
firing on a merchant ship or a passenger cargo ship, and firing on a 4-stacker ocean liner, of which cargo makes up a minuscule percentage of her hold. It's I feel like it's one of those things where, is she technically a legitimate target? Yes. Is the backlash from engaging her worth the amount of supplies she will meaningfully deliver to the war effort? No. No, fundamentally not.
Yeah. The Axis teams would care about that.
Act as if what?
How about the Emma coming through?
All I heard was something 14s care about that.
Okay, can someone in chat just put how bad I'm coming through?
You sound like you've got 2 eggs in your mouth. The sound quality is fine, it's just your voice sounds like you've got 2 eggs in each
That's
of your
because
cheeks.
I've had 3 teeth removed.
Ah.
Yeah.
Tends to do that shit to you. And I'm still coughing up blood.
Ooh. How macabre.
I got 3 massive holes in my jaw currently, so...
Ooh, good gravy.
Very fun.
No, it's not. Have you tried drinking Dr. Pepper when your mouth is full of blood?
No,
Yeah,
I don't
the-
really think
The
I
good
want
thing is,
to.
don't drink it.
Steve,
Soiling yourself there.
Steve, I'm allowed to have
But
opinions without
the thing
calling
is,
it
James,
digging a
I'm
hole.
addicted to the stuff.
Steve, I'm allowed to have opinions without calling it digging a hole. Having a difference of opinion from you and Dr. Clark does not mean I'm digging a hole. Kindly stop referring to it as such.
It depends on the mood I'm in and how cruel I'm feeling. But yeah, it could be referred to as digging a hole, but it usually depends on what mood I'm in.
Yeah, you do dig a back. You do dig a hole when you have a bad argument, and then your pride kicks in, and you refuse to admit it was a bad idea.
That I will admit.
Actually,
But in this particular case, I think my reasoning is fairly solid. I think it's more a point of view at this point rather than right or wrong.
I think the trouble is, I think, Fleet, you are applying logic, and you're right in a logical world. In a world where everyone ascribes to logic and follows logic, you are completely right. However, as has been proved quite consistently, the world is neither logical nor kind.
I just don't see the benefit of and I don't mean logically, I'm talking about politically, emotionally. I can't see the benefit to it.
Imagine the German equivalent of Nigel Farage getting hold of this information and being able to show photographs in their election material and shove it on every 5 minutes on the television.
Oh, that I understand. I was more referring to the legitimate German government.
So that's why the legitimate government wants to control of it, because if they can control its release, then that denies him having that equivalent of power. And I had to pick Nigel Farage there because I know how you feel about him. So that's why I focus on Nigel Farage.
Yeah, that's a good argument.
He's an effective politician for a view which you don't agree with. This is the trouble. This is the point. Is that's what you have to deal with.
Yeah.
It's your control. It's not. You want to control narrative because you want to control narrative. You want to control narrative because what happens if X controls the narrative or Y controls the narrative?
Well, Steve, you said Germany, but then you didn't. You said Germany, but Germany as a nation is not a is not. If you're talking about Germany, that usually means referring to the nation as a whole, which usually means referring to the government operating that nation, because the nation as a whole isn't a thing with a soul or a will. It's a collection of interests. So my very reasonable train of thought was Germany. If you're saying Germany, therefore you're talking about the German government. If you meant interests within Germany as a whole, then that would be a different argument entirely, and I totally understand it. And in fact, that lines up with what Dr. Clark just said. Very much so. And at that point, I can see why the German government would say that. They'd say, the line would probably run something along the lines of, we in collaboration with the British government have searched the hold of the Lusitania, we have confirmed war material is on there, XYZ, here's what she was carrying, and and the German and British governments agree that while it is an absolute national tragedy and an almost unforgivable act that she was fired upon being a passenger-carrying vessel despite being in wartime, it is an act that was technically, by the definitions of maritime law, legal.
No British government is signing up to that. No British government is signing up to that. And there's the problem. No British government is signing up to agree to that. At all. This is why there's a race between the British government and the German government. Because the German government wants to control it for their reasons, the British government want to control it for our reasons. Because there is no way the British government are ever going to admit, no British government is ever going to admit in any way, shape or form that the sinking of Lusitania was in any way, shape or form legal.
Which I think is a little bit... it was
It's hypocritical. It could be argued to be hypocritical.
I'd argue
but it's never going to be done.
I'd argue it's almost fighting the truth, because the truth is it was legal by technicality. A horrible tragedy, but...
What do you think politics is?
I am aware of that, Foxo. I don't need the obvious stating to me.
So,
However,
it is legal in a sense. However, the Germans were well known for shooting at ships, i.e. also hospital ships, at that time. So in theory, yes, this is a propaganda win for the Germans now, and not a great thing for us. But in retrospect, it still doesn't... It's a minute drop in the sense that Germany was in the right during that war. Because they will not.
I know. Problem is, I'm just trying to basically think about how... Because all I can see is this spiraling into a crisis that would actually rather seriously damage relations between the two nations. Because
it would.
Because
it 100% would.
It would. Which is
and there's no way you can stop it happening. Welcome to international relations, fleet. Sometimes shit happens.
I mean, Steve, I wouldn't... Again, Steve, I'm gonna draw an objection to that. I'm not digging. We're having a discussion about it. And I am having my viewpoint challenged and changed. That's just a normal discussion, not digging a hole I can't get out of. If I was digging a hole I can't get out of, I wouldn't be conceding points and, participating in the open discussion.
I feel like we could, from a British side of this, if it was to blow up into an international incident that, look, the British for carrying, this and that on board ships, we can go back to them and say, well, in theory, we were playing the same game as the Germans because they went around sinking hospital ships. They ran around doing unrestricted warfare when we basically said, that's not a good idea. We should stick to,
prize
the
rules.
Standard method of warfare.
Prize rules. Yeah. Because exactly. That's the counter shot, isn't it? Like, why didn't the U-boat service and challenge Lusitania? Why was she engaged without warning?
Yeah,
precisely.
Probably in the nicest way, if someone was sensible, and if there was a sensible third party trying to remove the chances of a big fight, it would be putting to get there first and remove the stuff from there, which we today would consider war material, but which back then might be considered war material. The leader stuff which we would today not consider war material, but then would be.
Yeah.
And that would cause enough of a debate over whether it was or was not war material that everyone was distracted by that, and it would stop it.
Yeah,
and
sort of reset it back to normal, basically. Restore the status quo rather than it spiraling.
Yes. Yeah. But that would require basically an organization of super secret historians to disappear into that. And
I summoned the ship-shape crew. I summoned the ship-shape crew for a secret mission.
No. Okay, quick thing. You've got to abbreviate that. Because that abbreviates to the SS. You don't want to be the SS.
Well, we can be like the SS Great Britain or the SS. We could be the steamships. Yeah, there you go. There you go. You weren't expecting that, were you? Ha
You do realise ship shape itself is actually the abbreviation of the name with its first letters.
Oh, good times.
Oh boy.
We had
Going
a
back to the
good
question,
ramble. We had a good ramble.
Flakes,
Yeah.
there's something else that we haven't considered before we
Oh
end this.
no.
The wreck itself of Lusitania is in such a dilapidated state because it's been basically raked and God knows what else with loads of fishing trawlers and nets and all that jazz, that there's a good possibility that war material doesn't exist anymore. Or has been buried to time.
Well, no, James. The problem,
but,
James. That's not the problem. The problem is that a intact Lusitania is floating in a harbour somewhere, as she was before she sank.
Yeah, and just
Okay,
to
I've got a
clarify,
caveat.
something quickly before we get on to it. We keep talking about ship shape. It's worthwhile remembering this. It is technically the Society and Historical Institute for the Preservation of Ships, Heritage, its Appreciation, Pursuit, and Exploration.
Good lord, that is that.
AKA ship shape.
Hurrah!
AKA the SS.
Stop it,
Now you're
Foxo.
making an anagram of an anagram.
You can't do that. You can't anagram the anagram of the anagram. Because then we'll
Who are
anagram
you,
our
the
way into...
anagram police?
Yes!
Yes.
For once me and Alex are on the same page. Victory!
I'm sorry, I've heard what you talk about, and there's rumours of Warspite, and people are not liking Warspite.
Yeah, then we just threatened to set Drac on them.
Yeah, that works. Also, did anyone manage... Oh, no, I know Chair managed to get... Oh, I meant to ask Chair how the... I meant to ask Chair how the book launch went. Because he managed to get there. I'll have to ask him at some point how that went. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching Ramblings. We've run a little bit over with that last question. But again, once again, we have no catch-up questions. So if this keeps up, I might actually be able to start streaming something different on Friday. Like I did last Friday, just gone. Which I'm actually looking forward to kind of doing. Which will be fun. Another Twitch stream a week couldn't hurt.
No.
So... look forward to that on Friday. I haven't decided if it's going to be a continuation of the Hoy game I did on Friday or something else entirely. But keep your eyes peeled. Might start doing a KSP campaign. Crash rockets into things. That could only go well. But yeah, for those who...
It's a rocket man.
But for those who stick around this evening, obviously there will be the post-Ramblings game night, as I'm now setting into motion again on this server. So please do bear that in mind. If you fancy sitting around for that, please stick around. If not, I hope you had a fantastic evening. I hope you'll continue to have a fantastic evening, and I'll see all of you tomorrow on the Twitch channel for Rule the Waves 3. Take care, everyone, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye!